Chapter 1 Supernatural Civilization Game. Children, the great Lord of the Grey Mist, the Lord of the Endless Tides, the Lord of the Seven Seas is watching us. It's time to show our bravery and kill these heretics. On the wide shoal, Lin Xiao, who is about 1.78 meters tall, slammed his feet into a circle of fine sand, jumped high with a wooden handle bone knife in each hand, and twisted his body flexibly in midair to escape. The stabbed bone and fork slashed into the bulging eyes of the lobster man in front of him with a ruthless knife, and the power far surpassed that of ordinary people. The tissue sprayed on the ground and was washed up by the rising tide and fell into the sea. One kick kicked the lobster man's body away, and a strange cry came from behind him. The Lord of the Grey Mist is above, kill these heretics. A large group of people with a height of only about 1.12 meters, like children, covered with small gray scales. The murlocs waved all kinds of harpoon bones and forks and passed over him, and rushed towards the other 9 lobstermen on the other side of the beach with strange screams. Compared with the childlike height of the gray-scaled murlocs, these lobstermen are about 1.67 meters, with a thick layer of carapace all over their bodies, regardless of their size or defense. It is a pity that the number is too small. 70 or 80 grayscale murlocs swarmed up, and the ants could kill the elephants. Lin Xiao was not idle either. After taking a breath, he quickly followed. After a few steps of acceleration, he rushed to one of the surrounding circles and shouted, "Step aside." The few grayscale murlocs separated tacitly, and Lin Xiao rushed forward with a leap, stabbed the lobster man's hard carapace with a savage knife, and quickly retreated, and the besieging grayscale murlocs quickly surrounded him. Lin Xiao didn't take a breath, and rushed to the other lobster man without stopping, turning halfway, throwing out the bone knife in his hand and shooting the besieged lobster man on the other side, saving a fish that was almost killed by a fork. People. But the injured lobster man went mad, facing the random forks around him, and the head of a grayscale murloc was hit by the fork, and the bone pierced into the bone more than 10 centimeters. Fuck. Another one died. Lin Xiao cursed inwardly, feeling powerless for the poor fighting power of his family. But he was speechless, so he still got his spirits up and killed 2 lobstermen again with the help of his far superior fighting power and skills, killing 2, and rescuing the scene 7 times. It took a full half an hour to save the scene. The remaining lobstermen were killed one by one at the cost of 6 deaths and 8 injuries. When the last lobster man was killed, many Grey Mist murlocs cheered and rushed towards the lobster man's body. One impatiently grabbed the cut-off lobster man's hand and wanted to bite it down, but Lin Xiao threw his fist back and flew into the beach. He ignored the murloc at all, reached out and grabbed a lobster corpse, raised it up high and roared loudly. The great Lord of Grey Mist has given us the strength to defeat the enemy, and sacrifice these spoils to the great Lord of Grey Mist tonight. Immediately, a gray fog murloc shouted, "The Lord of Grey Mist is above. This is the big head, the one with the highest degree of faith among all the clans." After speaking, Lin Xiao dragged the lobster man's corpse to the other end of the beach, thinking in his heart as he walked. Open the panel. Immediately, a light curtain that only he could see popped up in front of him, displaying a series of data. Deity interface. Username: Lin Xiao, citizen number TXWD 542,154,895,147. Real name: Cyberlux Meyer. God's name: Lord of the Grey Mist, Lord of the Endless Tides, Lord of the Seven Seas. Godhead: none. Occupation: none. Divinity: 1. God fire. Not ignited. Divine power: 1. Divine transcendent power. Titicaler. God's domain: Sea of Grey Fog. Religion: Ancestral God of Murlocs. Follower: Grey Mist Murloc. Occupation: none. Faith value: 14,425 points. Okay. Lin Xiao's gaze skipped the above lines and landed directly on the back. Regarding the belief value, compared to the previous 14,347 points, it increased by about 70 or 80 points. Then the thought fell on the bottom of the panel with the sect interface written, and the light curtain flickered to open the second light curtain panel. Cult interface. Sect: Murloc Ancestor God. Sacred emblem: Fork-raised murlocs surrounded by sea water. Belief: Ancestor worship, primitive religion. Voter: Not selected, needs to consume 100 divine power. Magic. First level underwater breathing, first level water acceleration, first level seawater essence. Pastor. Not selected. Believers. 1 mad believer, 14 devout believers, 33 true believers, 59 general believers. The number of true believers has increased by 2, which is okay. Lin Xiao pouted and looked at another race interface. Race interface. Race. Murloc. Category. Subhuman. Class. Lower race. Occupation. None. Talent. Underwater breathing. Skills. None. Specialties. Beginner swimming. Constitution. 0.61 point for an adult human. Strength. 0.5. The 80-year-old may have more explosive power than you at the moment. Agility. 0.4. 1.1. Land, water. Spirit. 0.4. Even genetic mutation is impossible to become a spellcaster. Comments. Extremely weak aquatic race. The race interface is nothing to watch. Lin Xiao has seen it countless times. There has been no change in the past few years. However, there are surprises on the arms statistics panel. 2 of the total 107 gray fog murlocs show a yellow plus sign, which represents that the 2 gray mist murlocs have accumulated enough combat experience to upgrade. He immediately focused his consciousness on the 2 murlocs displaying the yellow plus sign, and immediately saw a faint phantom light appearing on the 2 murlocs behind his eyes, distinguishing them from the other murlocs at once. I'll be promoted when I go back. Lin Xiao was in a good mood, because the depression of the 7 family members who died just now was much lighter. Life and death are a matter of fate, and wealth is in the sky. It is common for such a weak race to die in battle. It took Lin Xiao only half a year to take care of his life and fear of death at the beginning. At the end of the beach less than 1,000 meters away from the battlefield, there is a tribe of murlocs. The gray fog murlocs use shells to grind and add sea sand, and then grind and mix the fish and flesh residues they catch to build a building of sea sand. Structure house. Of course, this is not what the murlocs came up with. How could the poor brain of the gray fog murlocs think of this? Myself, and then teach it to these gray fog murlocs. Returning to the tribe, the dozen or so old murlocs who stayed in the tribe happily greeted them and moved the spoils back to the tribe. A grand sacrifice ceremony was held that night under the auspices of Lin Xiao. The great lord of gray fog, the king of endless tides, the lord of the 7 seas. The creator of all things in the world, the supreme, and the spreader of civilization. The creator of the gray mist murlocs, the ancestor. When he read this, even though he had read it many times, Lin Xiao still felt a little ashamed. But when he thought that this was related to the belief of his family, he still bit it for a long time, endured the shame and continued to read. A great being that shelters us and allows us to survive and reproduce. Cyberlux. We offer sacrifices here, along with our devout beliefs. Having said that, Lin Xiao's voice suddenly became louder, and he prayed with a loud voice that is difficult for ordinary murlocs to make. The great lord of gray mist is above, please accept the sacrifices and give our brave warriors greater power. As he spoke, he grabbed the corpse of the lobsterman and threw it on the altar. A dozen or so murloc warriors who were stronger than their companions lifted the corpse of the lobsterman to the altar, and then Lin Xiao grabbed a bone staff with a frenzied expression on his face. Do your own Maori war dance. Affected by him, the gray mist murlocs by the altar also danced the familiar war dance around the altar. At this moment, the murloc leader who danced the war dance like a mad believer suddenly returned to his original state, but at the level that no one found, a golden light containing a mysterious aura rose into the sky, over the tribe. It turned into a golden human-shaped phantom, and it looked like a handsome human boy. There is a layer of mysterious power around the golden phantom, which is blurred and invisible. Lin Xiao looked around. The God Realm, which was 5 kilometers long, 3.5 kilometers wide, and 1 kilometer high, could be seen at a glance. The great God Realm was silent in the night. Only the gray fog murloc tribe had a few lights and sounds. This small tribe, which is only in the early 100s, is all Lin Xiao's relatives. There are only 12 first-level murloc warriors and 95 zero-level murlocs in total. Well, there is also the Lord of Grey Mist, who is the leader of the tribe in person, a powerful murloc about 1.78 meters tall, who can be called a giant in the eyes of other gray mist murlocs. Open the race interface. The familiar light curtain popped open, and Lin Xiao was familiar with the ARMS statistics interface. He found the 2-0 level gray fog murlocs with yellow plus signs. He stretched out his fingers that exuded a faint golden light and clicked, 200 faith points. Disappeared, and the 2-0 level gray fog murlocs were promoted to first level gray fog warriors. He just clicked here, and in reality, 2 golden lights flew out from the central sacred sign of the altar and hit the 2 murlocs who were cheering around the altar. The next second, the 2 gray fog murlocs suddenly emitted with a roar. The body grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. In less than 10 seconds, the size of the 2 fish humans increased from 1 meter 1 to 1 meter 2 to 1 meter 3. Compared with their counterparts, they were 1 head taller and stronger. At the same time, the color of the scales on the body surface became deeper and higher in defense. The 2 murloc warriors who had completed their promotion reacted after a short period of days, and immediately knelt down to the holy sign representing the Lord of the Grey Mist on the altar, and uttered words of praise crazily. Above the sky, Lin Xiao directly filtered out these compliments that he had been tired of hearing many times. The focus of his attention now is that the line of belief representing the 2 murlocs in the sea of knowledge has been bolded again. Believers become devout believers, and the faith value provided has increased from 0.2 points per day to 1 point, a full 5-fold increase. In addition to that, he was promoted because he witnessed his fellow race being empowered by the Lord of Grey Mist right under his nose. 15 true believers and 3 additional devout believers were also born. As a result, the number of devout believers in Lin Xiao's family suddenly reached 19, and the number of true believers reached 43. This is the main reason why he was promoted not on the spot but in the sacrificial ceremony, and what better way to promote the faith of believers than to show miracles in person. Although this is not a miracle, it is just an ordinary promotion, but as a professional conferred God game player, this kind of operation has become instinct. Satisfied and closed the panel, Lin Xiao took a last glance at this divine domain that belonged to him. With a thought, it turned into a golden light and disappeared into the sky. Chapter 2 Goldfinger Open. Laugh. A slight air pressure sounded, the White God's domain connection cabin door opened, and a light blue mist with a calming effect poured out, revealing Lin Xiao who had just opened his eyes. He reached out and took off the ring made of transparent crystal on his head, rubbed his eyebrows, and carefully placed the ring in the dedicated storage slot in the cabin. This is an auxiliary device dedicated to stabilizing the mind and buffering mental stress. Its main function is not only to connect him to the divine domain located in the subspace, but also to relieve the disturbance of perception caused by the time flow rate between the main world and the subspace more than 100 times, and to stabilize the mind, so that a new player like him who has just opened up the realm of the gods will not get lost in the illusion generated by divine power. After all, a newborn divine being like him was an ordinary person before, and when he first came into contact with divine power and divine nature, without this assistance, it would be easy to get lost in the powerful power brought by divine power. When the Human Federation first discovered the conferred God game, there were no such perfect auxiliary facilities at that time. At that time, it was often heard that some people were affected by divinity and divine power, and their personalities changed greatly, enslaved by the power. The time period that Lin Xiao has traveled through is very good. At this time, after tens of thousands of years of exploration and development, human beings have already created a stable login cabin of God's domain, and human civilization has also established a firm foothold in the chaotic sea. Tens of thousands of gods smashed many crystal wall systems in the chaotic virtual sea, and the planes and even crystal wall systems occupied were uncountable. Lin Xiao was quite satisfied that he was reborn in this glorious super fantasy civilization's best era. He is also quite satisfied with his reborn family. His parents are still alive, and he has no siblings and an only son. Although the family has many branches and there are some internal contradictions, it is generally harmonious, and there are not so many things that go wrong. After all, the ancestor of the true God who has ignited the fire of the family is still alive, and the gods have an infinite lifespan. He came out of the God's domain login cabin, washed his face, and heard a ding sound from the God's domain login cabin. wiped his face and walked to the god's domain login cabin. His finger lightly touched a button. A light curtain popped up out of thin air in front of him, showing Dongning City Number 5 Middle School. The transcript of the 38th major class of the 3rd class this semester is as follows. Student Lin Xiao. Individual performance, 6.2 points. Family performance, 4.4 points. Overall rating, 5.5 points. Overall evaluation, good. Class rank, 25. Grade rank, 252. The class teacher's comment. The personal combat performance is above average, and the family's performance is unsatisfactory. The transcript is very formal. Lin Xiao glanced at it and shrugged. He already knew this, and the family he chose was indeed a bit lousy. He knew it when he first opened up God's domain half a year ago, but he couldn't help it. No matter who the initial family is, it can only be a low-level race. A powerful race cannot bear the divinity of a newcomer. Only when it becomes stronger in the future can it be replaced by a more powerful race. The reason why he chose the Murloc was not because the domain of the gods was full of water, and the Murloc had an advantage in the water. At the beginning, there were only 50 Murlocs in the god's domain. Now, for half a year, according to the time flow rate of 1 day in the main world and 1 year in the god's domain, it is more than 200 years. After mixing for so long, there are only 107. And the total growth rate for more than 200 years is only 100%, which is a pit. The main reason is that the Murlocs are too weak. Although all the students' initial races are very weak, the Murlocs are also the bottom group. The weak strength, coupled with the battle damage of the big class once a week, he did not get a card to speed up the reproduction speed, and it was still like this after half a year. However, what made him unable to complain was that his performance in the class was still at the middle level. He ranked 25th out of 50 students in the whole class, and there were 500 students in the same grade in 10 classes in the whole class. His ranking it can still be maintained at around 250, which is quite stable after half a year. After rubbing his teeth, Lin Xiao closed the panel and clicked on another message at the back. It was also sent by the head teacher. It was a group notice. Prepare for the basic test next Monday. This is the last basic test of the semester, followed by the final exam. The next school will be divided into classes. Everyone knows what this means. This is your last chance. Please students in this last month, be ready. The bottom-up test is conducted once a month. Generally, the head teacher prepares various monster cards to release some difficult monsters to invade the student's realm. It is similar to the big class just now, but the monsters will be stronger or more. There is a certain danger in the thorough test. If you don't pay attention, it will cause heavy losses to the family in the god's domain, thus affecting the development. But correspondingly, this is a good opportunity for some outstanding students, because the student's admission rate will affect the teacher's performance assessment, so the teacher usually gives various rewards to the students who perform well in the big class, and the same is true for the bottom-up test. Of course, Lin Xiao has not received a teacher award for more than 30 major classes since he entered school. The one with the best grades was ranked 19th in the class and received a verbal encouragement from the head teacher. Some dignifiedly closed the light curtain. He was not worried about the thorough test, but the final exam a month later. Human Commonwealth High School implements a grading system. The first year of high school is normal, but after the second year of high school, the school will reclassify according to the results of the final exam of the first year of high school, which is the so-called ordinary class, top class, and key class. Undoubtedly, the top class and key class will definitely get more resource tilt and better teacher education. The ordinary class, naturally, is taught casually, basically it is self-inflicted. Even if Lin Xiao has golden fingers, he attaches great importance to this class. He doesn't want to be assigned to ordinary classes, so even if he has golden fingers, it is not easy to get along. It's not that the golden finger is not strong, but that you can go to the key class, why go to the ordinary class? This is not a fantasy novel. The waste is ridiculed at the beginning, and then slapped in the face with the rise of the golden finger. He's not so busy, so this time to test. His consciousness sank into his own sea of consciousness. In the center of the sea of knowledge like a starry sky, a crystal cube with a faint brilliance was flipping back and forth irregularly, and a progress bar had reached its peak. Hopefully it'll be loaded before the quiz. Before thinking about it, the progress bar in the middle of the sky just reached the top, and then the constantly flipping crystal cube in the sea of knowledge burst into infinite light, like a sun traversing the starry sky. My golden finger is finally turned on. Lin Xiao almost burst into tears. After waiting for 17 years, this thing was finally ready to use. He stretched out his palm for the first time, a little white light flew out, and quickly flew out of his palm to outline a Rubik's Cube made of light filaments, which was the projection of the Rubik's Cube. Well, he didn't know what the real name of this thing was, but it was named the Magic Cube because of the function of the Rubik's Cube. As its name suggests, the function of this Rubik's Cube is light creation. It can decompose, refine, fuse, reorganize, etc. anything put in it, and it has the function of completely changing the essence of everything in the world. When he first got the Magic Cube, Lin Xiao didn't know how to use it, but after he entered the conferred God game to open up the divine realm, he knew how to make the best use of the Magic Cube. Why bah, I have to give it a try. He couldn't bear to try again next time, turned around and went to the room, opened an alloy safe built into the wall against the wall, and took out 3 crystal cards. This is a card unique to function games. They are a 3-star resource card, a 3-star skill card, and a 2-star skill card, all of which are whiteboard ordinary cards. 3-star resource card. Fertile black soil, rare, transform a piece of fertile black soil with a length and width of 60 meters and a thickness of 4 meters at one time. 3-star skill card. Stab, normal, limited to piercing weapons, rushing into the target at a very fast speed, causing twice the damage of the weapon and triggering the piercing effect. 2-star skill card. Severe pain, normal, your attack will cause the target to take 15% additional damage, with a very small chance to trigger the bleeding effect. The first 3-star resource card of these 3 cards was given by his grandfather when he first opened up the God's Domain. Unfortunately, the God's Domain he chose was the sea area, and the Grey Mist Murlocs were not good at farming, so this rare 3-star resource card was useless. One of the other 2 skill cards was given by Grandma, and the other was given by a cousin, but he felt that it was a bit wasteful to use it on a race as weak as a Murloc, and he knew the function of his golden finger very early. I thought of saving it first, and when the golden finger is turned on, I will decompose and fuse the 2 cards into a more powerful card. So I kept putting it in the safe to eat ashes, and I waited until today to finally use it. He couldn't wait to take out the 3 cards. He thought about taking out a wrist wheel made of crystals from the bedside table slot. When he pressed his finger on it, a light curtain popped up. Edited a piece of information. My wise father and gentle and lovely mother, your son has figured it out recently, and he doesn't want to work hard. I hope your mother will hand over the New Year's money in red envelopes that your son has kept with you over the years to your son. After reading the information, he edited it again and changed. You, signed his name and sent it out. After less than 5 minutes, there was a reply, and when I opened it, a light curtain popped up from the surface of the wrist wheel and turned into a projection of a woman in a light blue starlight dress. The woman's appearance is similar to Lin Xiao's. She looks gentle and beautiful like a girl. She looks at Lin Xiao with a doting face and says softly, "Shower, have you figured it out?" "Yes, I figured it out." This is Lin Xiao's mother Jin Yunju, a demigod whose priesthood is the rainy season and growth. At this time, this is a projection of her spiritual sense. Her real body is now located in a certain AX-14 crystal wall system where the family resides. A face group. Just like all mothers in the world, Jin Yunju still dotes on Lin Xiao, his only son, and has prepared a gift for him every year for his birthday these years. Chapter 3 Use of Goldfinger. It's just that Lin Xiao used to think about waiting for the golden finger to open and then soaring into the sky. All these gifts are useless, they are stored in the mothers. Now that the golden finger is open, it can be used, and naturally he has to get it back. He has to improve his strength quickly and prepare for the final exam. He doesn't want to really be assigned to the ordinary class and then counterattack. It would be too laborious. Jin Yunju didn't cross-examine him why he figured it out, but just like an ordinary old mother, she told him to study hard. Of course, She knew that Lin Xiao's grades in the past 6 months were not good, but she didn't urge him, not to say no. The concern is that she had said early on that she would drop out of school if her grades were not good. She and her father had prepared enough resources for him to become a demigod. This moved Lin Xiao very much, and he wanted to tell them many times that he was sure to catch up later, but he couldn't say anything about the golden finger, and he could only worry about it in his heart. Fortunately, now that the golden finger has been activated, I can't wait any longer. I can take off immediately. I believe that the next meeting will definitely make my old lady, who is actually hundreds of years old but still looks like a 28 girl, surprised and happy. Demigods have long been able to keep their faces forever, and their lifespans are measured in thousands of years. Maybe it is not surprising in the main world with strict rules, but in the alien crystal wall, every demigod can call the wind and call the rain, and mortals can look up. Terror exists. After finally sending the 28-year-old old lady away, Lin Xiao had a small delicate box exuding a faint golden light in his hand, which contained all his New Year's money or red envelopes since he was 17 years old. He rubbed his hands nervously, opened the box, and a dazzling golden light burst out from it, making him unable to help but close his eyes. After the golden light eased a little, did you see that there were 2 cards lying quietly in the box? Why only 2? Just as he was about to ask his mother, the wrist wheel just popped up the message his mother had just sent. I forgot to tell you that your father took all your belongings and replaced them with 2 cards that are very suitable for you. Take a look and see if you are satisfied. Lin Xiao, what else can I say? If you are not satisfied, you have to take a look first. Take out the 2 cards and put them in front of you, and the attributes will be presented one by one. 4-star species card. Murloc normal, obtain 400 adult murlocs at one time. Note: half male and half male. 5-star species reproduction card rare, species fertility rate plus 300%, survival rate plus 300%, duration 10 years. Note: this card cannot be stacked with effect cards of the same type, and only one card can be used at a time. Lin Xiao rubbed his chin, feeling pretty good. He remembered that the cards given by his father and mother in the past generally hovered between 1 star and 2 stars. There was only one 3-star card. There were 17 cards in total in 17 years. It is estimated that the value of these 2 cards in total is equivalent, but the practicality is far less. On these 2 cards, 1 species card is directly given to 400 adult gray fog murlocs, and the other reproduction card speeds up the reproduction rate. According to the ratio of the time flow rate between the subspace and the main world of the gods will only take 10 days in 10 years, and you can watch it in 10 days. The results. The most important thing is that all newly born divine creatures can only use 1 card to enhance their strength in 1 month in each main world, which can be accumulated. Speaking of which, Lin Xiao really wanted to complain about the limit of 1 card that can be used this month, and 12 cards a year. It's fine for ordinary students, but it's a limit for students with backgrounds. But there is no way. The newly opened God's domain is very weak. The things in the card belong to the rules of the God's domain. If it is integrated into the God's domain, there will be fluctuations. 1 month is the time to smooth the fluctuations of the God's domain. Generally speaking, the fluctuations generated by different cards are different. For example, the fluctuations generated by cards such as species cards can also be called influences, which are definitely greater than summoning some weapons. The impact of 5-star advanced cards is definitely greater than that of 1 or 2-star cards. However, students are generally unable to accurately assess the impact time, so for the sake of uniformity, it is stipulated that the rules should be formulated according to the 1-month impact period of the 5-star card. As for why the number of card fusions can be accumulated, this involves a word called stability. If God's domain does not fuse cards for a long time, God's domain will become more and more stable, and multiple cards can be fused at one time until the fusion reaches the limit of stability. However, this situation will change slightly after the 2nd year of high school. After the 2nd year of high school, the student's realm generally develops, and the integration of cards will stabilize faster, which means that more cards can be integrated. That is to say, only 1 card can be merged in the 1st year and month of opening up God's domain. In the 2nd year, 2 cards can be merged in 1 month. By the third year of high school, 3 cards can be merged in a month. After the third year of high school, if you can become a demigod, the upper limit will be higher, but if you still can't become a demigod, the upper limit of the monthly fusion cards will remain the same as the third year, and will not increase. It is precisely because of the particularity of the 3 years of high school that the 3 years of high school are also called the Golden 3 years. They are the 3 years for laying a solid foundation. The possibility of becoming a demigod is lower. Of course, this rule is only valid for students in regular schools. Students who drop out of school can use cards to enhance the realm without restrictions without abiding by this rule. But the consequence is that the stability of God's domain decreases, affecting the foundation. Not only is it difficult to condense the priesthood to become a demigod, but it is almost impossible to ignite the fire of God and become an immortal true God. Therefore, any student who is interested in becoming a true God will strictly abide by this rule, and will never dare to rush for quick success and get lucky. Lin Xiao has not used a single card yet, but he has accumulated 8 opportunities to use it. Now he uses his golden finger to strengthen the low-level card into a high-star card, maximizing his strength within the limited conditions of use. Put away these 2 cards and the previous 3 cards, lie down again in the God's Domain login cabin, close the cabin door, and light blue mist gushes out. This is a unique energy in the game cabin, which can calm the mind and provide maintenance at the same time, nutrients needed by the body. He took out the crystal ring from the card slot and put it on his head. He closed his eyes, and when his mind moved, Lin Xiao only felt that his consciousness sank and fell into the boundless darkness. This is the subspace, the space between the main world and the chaotic sea. All the divine domains of human civilization are as low as a divine being like him, as strong as demigods, true gods, and even the divine domains of several great divine powers in legends are all in this subspace. Within the space, the countless stars are dots of different gods. Through the connection between the God's Domain login device and the God's Domain, Lin Xiao descended on his own God's Domain again, and a golden phantom appeared above a small space. Lin Xiao's divine domain is 5 kilometers long, 3.5 kilometers wide, and 1 kilometer high. It includes the depth below the underground soil and the space above ground, of which 78% are shallow seas, 15% are peninsulas, and 7% are islands. Looking down from the air, the whole world is a picture. The left and right are the length, the upper and lower are the width, and most of the area on the right is the sea. There is a coastal hilly belt on the west coast of the world, with a few lichen plants, a few coconut trees, and along the long sandy beach stretches from the top to the bottom, and the gray mist Murloc tribe is at the bottom left corner of the God's Domain. There are a small number of islands of dozens or hundreds of square meters in the sea. Most of the islands are bare stones, with a little moss in the center, and there are no resources. In addition to the main species, the gray mist Murlocs, there are only 4 species of sturgeon, sardines, green shrimp, and swimming crabs in the entire God realm. Hunt for food. On the whole, this God realm is quite barren. Normally, if there are no other changes, it is almost impossible to get admitted to even the worst universities by relying on this resource to develop. In other words, it may not be possible to condense the priesthood to become a demigod in this life. Lin Xiao is so confident that he can endure for so long. Apart from his golden finger, the main reason is that his birth in this life was not bad. His parents are both demigods. God's resources are still fine. At this time, it has been less than an hour since Lin Xiao left the God's Domain last time, but according to the time flow between the main world and the God's Domain, more than half a month has passed in the God's Domain, and the Grey Mist Murloc tribe has forgotten about half a month ago. The battle was over, and the entire tribe returned to its original state. A large group of Grey Mist Murlocs were fishing in the shallow seas with sharpened branches, stone cones or bone forks, led by a Murloc leader who was n times stronger than the same race. This Murloc leader is usually the leader of the Grey Fog Murloc tribe, but when Lin Xiao needs it, he can occupy his physical body and descend at any time. It can be regarded as his special descending body. In addition, in fact, all the masters of the gods have real bodies, but very few people will show their real bodies. Usually they get a common body like him. Although it is called the function game, it is not a real game that can be resurrected infinitely. Once the real body dies, it is really dead. Lin Xiao didn't disturb these family members. He looked left and right, turned into a golden light and flew to the far right of the map, which is a deep sea area for the Grey Mist Murlocs. There is an island here, and the Murlocs never come here, as a temporary place to stay. A total of 5 cards are lined up. First of all, the 4-star species card that can recruit 400 Grey Mist Murlocs at one time, and the 5-star species reproduction card are put away first, and then the eyes are on the remaining 3 cards. Samsung Resource Card, Fertile Black Earth Rare. Samsung Skill Card, Stab Normal. 2-star Skill Card, Severe Pain Normal. Lin Xiao pinched his chin and thought about it. 2 skill cards can be combined. In fact, he had a long time to think about the use of various golden fingers. Unlike other golden fingers, his Rubik's Cube has to be explored. After obtaining it, he is very clear about its function, and he has simulated it a lot before. There are actually 2 vague ideas in his mind, but one of them involves the other cards of the existence of the old lady. Now that all the cards are replaced by these 2 high-star cards, the idea must be in vain, so there is only one. That is, when he stretched out his hand, a little white light flew out, and a dazzling change outlined a Rubik's Cube. As his mind moved, the Rubik's Cube quickly became as big as a football hanging in front of him. He stretched out his hand and pulled out the Samsung Resource Card, Fertile Black Soil. This card is estimated to be unusable for a long time, so it can be used for decomposition. Press the card on the Rubik's Cube, and it sinks into it. The next second, the Rubik's Cube starts to rotate, emitting a faint glow. With a slight click sound, the rotating Rubik's Cube stopped, and then Fang Ning sensed that the resource card in the Rubik's Cube had disappeared, replaced by a strange energy stored in it. Creating the Rubik's Cube, it's called the energy of creation. Lin Xiao squeezed his fingers, took out the second 2-star skill card, Stab, and put it into the Rubik's Cube, and the Rubik's Cube turned again. Chapter 4 Fusion 5-star skill card, Salted Fish Thorn. This time he did not choose to decompose, but to refine, to extract the skills from the card. So when the Rubik's Cube rotates for a while, what appears is not the good fortune energy that decomposed the Samsung Resource Card before, but a small ball of light. Then, Lin Xiao extracted the last 2-star skill card, Severe Pain, and turned it into a smaller ball of light. His idea is very simple: focus on the skill Stab, fuse another skill with Severe Pain, and then use the decomposed 3-star resource card as nutrients to strengthen the fused skill, so as to obtain a comprehensive Stab and Severe Pain. The advantages of the 2 skills are more powerful. Skill. Construct the operations that need to be implemented in the heart. With the movement of Lin Xiao's mind, the 2 skill light balls slowly approach under the control of the Rubik's Cube. The energy quickly poured into the light sphere, and the white light sphere began to brighten rapidly as it absorbed the energy of creation. There are 2 directions for strengthening. Lin Xiao raised his brows, thought for a moment, and chose one of the options. 10 seconds later, all the energy of creation merged into the ball of light, and the Rubik's Cube stopped rotating. He stretched out his hand and pressed the Rubik's Cube. The Rubik's Cube quickly became smaller in his palm, and finally disappeared. The underside of the eyelid slowly flattened and turned into a card with a faint glow. 5-star skill card. Unknown skill Epic, limited to piercing weapons. Attack the target at a super fast speed across a distance of 50 yards, causing 5 times the damage of the maximum attack, and the attack ignores 50% of the defense. This is a strengthening direction he chose, Pure Explosion. The other strengthening direction only causes triple damage, but the attack ignores 50% of the defense, and has 4 special effects: piercing, armor breaking, bleeding, and tearing. Lin Xiao compared the 2, and finally chose the option of 5 times the explosion. A real man is to be just. Name the newly synthesized skill, Salted Fish Thorn, put it aside first, and then take out the 2 cards that were put away before, the 4-star Murloc card and the 5-star Reproduction card. These 2 cards can also be merged. Taking the Grey Fog Murloc Summoning card as the main body, decompose the Species Reproduction card, extract the breeding rules contained in it, and then integrate it on the Grey Fog Murloc card, and you will get one. Quickly throw the Grey Fog Murloc card into the cube to decompose and extract a light ball, then throw the species reproduction card into it to decompose, and extract the reproduction rule contained in the card. It was a golden light that was thinner than a hair, exuding a mesmerizing charm. Strictly speaking, if this reproduction rule is strong enough, and if you invest a lot of faith, value, and divine power, you will have the opportunity to refine it into a true reproduction divinity. Based on this, you can become a demigod, and then invest a lot of divine power to finally condense the priesthood of reproduction. It's a pity that Lin Xiao doesn't have much faith now, and this reproduction rule is not complete. It is too difficult to complete it. Shaking his head and throwing the messy thoughts aside, Lin Xiao controlled this trace of reproduction divinity to merge into the Grey Mist Murloc summoning card, and soon a new card appeared in his palm. 5-star species card. Murloc Epic. Obtain 400 Murlocs with twice the fertility rate and twice the survival rate of their cubs at one time. The number of summons has not changed, and the effect of the reproduction card has been weakened by 50%, but the effect has changed from a buff that lasted for 10 years to a feature that comes with the species. This alone makes the direct value of this card more than the two cards just combined. To be 10 times higher, the potential value is more than 100 times higher. Lin Xiao couldn't help but stretched out his palm to look at the Rubik's Cube outlined by the light wire in his palm, and couldn't help but click his tongue. Too strong. Epic quality after all. The golden palm grasped the Rubik's Cube and merged it into the palm. Lin Xiao rose to the sky and appeared high in the sky. The two cards were placed in front of him. Skill preload. The so-called preloading means that it is loaded into the designated family members in the domain of the gods first, but it cannot be used yet, and certain conditions must be met to activate. The conditions set by Lin Xiao are very simple. This preloaded skill must be activated only if the faith level reaches the true believer level. For the gods, believers from high to low are saints, fanatics, devout believers, true believers, pan-believers, false believers, and no believers. Needless to say, this is super difficult to obtain, even if there is not necessarily a true god. Mad believers are the most fanatical believers of ordinary demigods, weakened true gods, devout believers are the backbone, usually priests of sects, and true believers are the backbone of believers. It is also the most numerous group of god believers. The pan-believers further down are also called shallow believers, and they are basically worthless. 10 pan-believers are not as good as one true believer. Not to mention false believers, this is equivalent to not believing in gods at all, only the type of folded hands and worshipped when looking at other people's beliefs. The gods do not classify this category as their own belief. Normally, a divine creature like Lin Xiao, who has just opened up the realm of the gods, cannot show miracles, and it is difficult to increase their beliefs. This group of Grey Mist Murlocs still have bonuses from their initial family members, so they will have so many high-quality beliefs. If you go to it is hard to say whether 10 years of hard work can open up the situation for the missionaries of the natives of the outer regions. After loading the skills, Lin Xiao also preloaded another species card into the god's domain, and then turned it into a golden light and fell into the god's domain, directly throwing it into the commonly used descending body. The Murloc leader who was fishing with his clan suddenly paused, and the next second, the golden light in his pupils returned to its original state. The surrounding Murlocs were swimming in the shallow sea chasing sardines, and they didn't even notice that the leader had changed. Lin Xiao, who came, quickly called the fish people who had caught most of the fish back to the tribe, and activated the preloaded skills at the same time. When he passed a rock halfway, he suddenly let out a strange scream and shouted to the other Murlocs. "The great Lord of Grey Mist has given me new powers just now." The other Grey Fog Murlocs looked at him with strange eyes. Lin Xiao pulled out the bone knife around his waist and pointed at a stone pillar that protruded from the sea more than 30 meters away and was soaked and blackened by the sea water. The next second, the sea under his feet exploded. A Murloc phantom dragged a long wind belt through the sea and hit the stone pillar. Boom! The thick stone pillar exploded from the middle, and countless rubble splashed more than 10 meters away. All the Grey Mist Murlocs stared at him in astonishment. They kept their mouths open and surprised. After a while, they slowly turned around with Lin Xiao. The bone knives in their hands that were only half shattered were raised high and roared loudly. After reacting to it, they excitedly rushed up to discuss, quack quack, around the stone pillar that was shattered by his blow. 10 minutes later, a group of gray fog murlocs surrounded Lin Xiao and returned to the tribe. They rushed to the central altar of the tribe under the surprised eyes of other tribesmen, and they all knelt down and prayed in front of the altar. Almost instantly, Lin Xiao sensed that more than 10 lines of faith became thicker at this moment, and 10 shallow believers became true believers. Chapter 5 Adding Familiar. But this is just the beginning. Lin Xiao secretly loaded all the true believers on the side of the altar with the above murloc skills, then called out to all the gray mist murlocs to gather at the altar, and reiterated what he just said. Then, a murloc who had just been promoted from a shallow believer to a true believer grabbed the bone spurs in his hand and rushed out. The speed was so fast that the murlocs beside him jumped. Under the eyes of all the murlocs, this zero-level murloc, who had not yet been promoted to a first-level murloc warrior, burst into an unprecedented speed at this moment and slammed into a sea sand wall not far from the altar, with a loud bang. There was a loud noise, and the sea sand wall, which was no less strong than the masonry wall, blew through a hole big enough to accommodate a thigh on the spot, and countless pieces of sand were sprayed on the ground. Compared with Lin Xiao's performance just now, this murloc's performance is more convincing. After all, he is the leader of the tribe, and everyone knows that he is very powerful, but just now, everyone knows that this murloc is weak but can play such a powerful battle force, which completely subverted their cognition. In particular, as the skills of the true believers murlocs were loaded, they all tried to burst out the fighting power that was terrifying for the murlocs. Lin Xiao saw the fiery eyes of the other murlocs, and immediately jumped out and shouted. This is the power bestowed by the Great Lord of Grey Mist. Believing in the Great Lord of Grey Mist will give us great power. The facts are in front of us, this is not one or two, but so many murlocs have gained powerful power. These are all the murlocs with the deepest belief in the Lord of Grey Mist. The effect brought by so many role models is amazing. In this short period of less than a minute, all the remaining 34 false believers became true believers. And 2/3 of the original 43 true believers became devout believers, and most importantly, a full 8 of the original devout believers became mad believers. Before that, he was only a fanatic. After the settlement, Lin Xiao now has a total of 9 mad believers, 38 devout believers, and the rest are all true believers. In this way, all family members are eligible to load the skill, Salted Fish Stab. The same loading skills, compared to direct and rude loading, this method can also have additional benefits. Of course, this doesn't mean that Lin Xiao is very good at hurting believers. These are all the first batch of family members when God's domain was opened up. They have bonuses in terms of belief. Any player can do so well, and some are even stronger than him. The real test for them is the new family members that will be added in the future, or how to educate the conquered aboriginal races from other planes in the future. That is the place to test the ability of a new god. And Lin Xiao's new test is coming now. After the whole clan has loaded the new skills, he will start loading the species card. 400 new Grey Mist murlocs suddenly appeared on the northern beach of the tribe, and driven by unknown forces, they are moving forward. The Grey Fog murloc tribe moved in. With a thought in his mind, a little golden light disappeared from the top of the head of the murloc leader, and then released a divine metaphor in the name of the Lord of the Grey Mist. At the moment when the divine decree was issued, a golden light shot from the central sacred sign of the altar into the forehead of the recovered murloc leader, that is, the tribal part-time priest suddenly raised the bone knife in his hand and shouted. The Great Lord of Grey Mist told us just now that a group of murlocs came to our waters, and the children came with me. Lin Xiao has a big class every 7 days, so the foreign invasion comes almost every few years. These fish people are used to it. Although the interval is very short this time, the fish people have no doubts. All eager to try, full of confidence. Under the leadership of the murloc leader, more than 100 Grey Fog murlocs rushed out of the tribe aggressively and walked north along the beach. Halfway through, they saw 400 Grey Fog murlocs who looked very depressed and were heading south. Stop at the same time. Although there are more Grey Fog murlocs on the other side, they look very miserable. Their faces are yellow, hungry, skinny, and they seem to be struggling to escape, and most of them don't even have weapons in their hands. And although the Grey Mist murloc tribe is small in number, at least they eat well. There are 7 or 8 groups of fish, shrimp and crabs stocked in God's domain, enough for more than 100 murlocs to keep well. In addition, after the battle, they had just acquired the skills, and they suppressed the more than 400 gray fog murlocs in their aura. Different from facing other invaders, it may be the enemy at the same time as the gray fog murloc, plus Lin Xiao's spiritual suggestion. The murloc tribe did not shout and kill for the first time, after a confrontation for a while, the murloc leader before communicating with this group of gray fog murlocs. Lin Xiao was relieved to see this. He was afraid that he would lose a lot of murlocs if he really fought. Even if they didn't fight at the beginning, they wouldn't fight later. After all, Fang Ning didn't say it was an enemy invasion at first, and the family members didn't have a strong desire to fight at first, but they did not want to show off. When bringing this group of embarrassed gray mist murlocs back to the tribe, there were murlocs from the tribe showing their skills constantly, which aroused the shock of many murloc refugees. When the tribe saw the altar in the center of the tribe, nearly a quarter of them immediately one of the murloc refugees leaned over to kneel, and Lin Xiao immediately sensed more than 100 lines of faith. Although all of them are very small and pan-believers, this represents a good start, indicating that this group of murloc refugees has a high degree of acceptance of faith. As long as it takes a long time, I am familiar with it, and I show miracles from time to time. It is not difficult to convert all these murloc refugees into believers. Time passed quickly. 10 days passed, and the fish-human refugees changed their sloppy appearance after a large number of fish and shrimp, and quickly integrated into the new tribe. Under the influence of the original tribe every day, more murlocs joined the belief in the Lord of Grey Mist, and the number of his followers grew rapidly, and soon more than 2/3 of the new murlocs established a religious connection with Lin Xiao, which means that they are already his new believers, but their belief level is not high, and they are basically shallow believers. But he is not in a hurry, and things like faith cannot be urgent. Anyway, he has a long time. He takes his time, prays regularly every day, and holds a routine large-scale gathering of believers once a month. Good opportunity to spread the faith. On this day, under the conscious guidance of Lin Xiao, the tribe began to collect sea sand and gravel from the outside, preparing to expand the tribe. At this point, Lin Xiao did not continue to observe, and determined that the family members were developing well, the two ethnic groups were successfully integrated, and he was satisfied with the offline. Coming out of the login cabin of the God's domain, Lin Xiao was still thinking about the situation in the God's domain, and he found that the fish people in the God's domain might not have enough food. There are only 4 groups of 1-star sturgeon, a group of 2-star sardines, a group of 1-star blue shrimp, and 2 groups of 1-star swimming crabs. The number is not much or not, and there is no problem for a few hundred murlocs. But the problem is that the newly arrived murlocs have twice the fertility rate and the survival rate of their cubs, which means that the number of murlocs in God's domain will grow rapidly in the near future, and this food may not be enough. What if there is not enough food? Of course, buy a card to eat. Chapter 6 Classmates. But not now. After a while, he doesn't have much money now. The cards that can be used in God's domain are not cheap. In addition, Lin Xiao's golden finger is now open, and his strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds. 1 or 2 biological cards may not be enough, and he needs to prepare a little more. He is going to directly buy a 4 or 5-star food card or species card. Resource cards that can be used as food are not cheap. The best way, of course, is to wait for the bottom-up test. At that time, if I have good grades, I can naturally ask my parents to ask for it in an upright manner. This is the difference between a well-born and a commoner. Everyone is the same in the number of cards they use. They are all limited to 1 per month, but can a card with 1 or 2 stars a month be the same as a card with more than 5 stars a month? As for why the descendants of the powerful still go to school, the main reason is that only the federal government has the method to open up the realm of the gods. For the next week, Lin Xiao will enter the God's domain through the God's domain login device every day, observe the situation of the family members in the God's domain, and guide the Grey Fog Murloc's beliefs according to the situation. According to the time difference of 1 year in the God realm of the main world, 7 days is 7 years. According to the average 3 years of Murlocs, it is enough to be fertile as an adult. After 7 years, Some of the first batch of Murloc refugees who gave birth quickly are now grandparents, but there are also many Murlocs who die of old age. After all, the upper limit of life expectancy is 20 years, but according to these living conditions, most Murlocs would have to die within 20 years. According to the rules of the 200 years since the creation of God's domain, ordinary gray fog Murlocs are generally considered old Murlocs when they are 15 years old, and at this age they are no longer able to fight and hunt. Thanks to the sufficient food in God's domain and Lin Xiao's conscious guidance, these old Murlocs could still eat one bite and not starve to death. If you replace it with a wild Murloc tribe with insufficient food, let alone the old Murlocs, they may be used as food to feed the little Murlocs. It's not that Lin Xiao has any concept of retirement, nor is he good-hearted. The main reason is that every believer is precious to him, especially the old fish people. Generally, they have good beliefs at this age, and they are most likely to be true believers. They are all little lambs that continuously provide faith value. How could he give up? For the gods, even if you do nothing, eat and sleep every day, and eat like a pig when you sleep, but as long as you can devoutly believe in yourself, you are a good believer and must be raised. 7 years later, when Lin Xiao left for the last time, the number of Murlocs in God's domain had exceeded 600, and they were already close to the food supply cordon. Fortunately, tomorrow is the bottom-up test, and he is looking forward to it. Early the next morning, he received a reminder message from the head teacher. But this time, instead of directly entering his own realm, he came to a huge palace suspended in the boundless void. The appearance of the palace is pure gold, with a faint divine light blooming, and a powerful divine power blooms from it. The gate of the palace is written with the words of Class 1 and 3 of Dongning City Number 5 Middle School. This is a piece of class teacher Lin Xiao artifact. It is a universal artifact for the school. It is distributed by the school. Every head teacher will have one. It is usually used by students in the class. In this era, there is only one big class a week, so students usually stay at home and enter the God's domain through the God's domain login device. They usually take a big class or an ordinary fundamental examination. Only in the important midterm and final exams only then will they gather together and go back to the school in the main world. Well, sometimes there are important events or competitions that have to be gathered at the main world school. Lin Xiao's will turned into a golden light and threw it into the huge palace, directly appearing in a hall, turning into his real body and standing on the golden floor. There were not many people arriving at this time, so he just found a corner and stood still. As time passed, more and more classmates came, and more people were divided into small circles in 2s and 3s, chatting in a low voice, and there were many of them alone like Lin Xiao. As the saying goes, where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, even in a class. Students like them who are qualified to open up the realm of the gods are different from ordinary students. From the beginning of admission, they have to compete for the attention of teachers, compete for school resources, and compete for various rank and so on. In this competition, there are naturally 3, 6, and 9 grades. There are top students, and naturally there are poor students. Although it is a student and a competitor, the natural relationship is not good. Just like the 3 classmates standing on Lin Xiao's right now, the first is the super handsome man with a red crystal like an eye embedded in his forehead. His name is Yuan Hong, his background is very good, and his father is a true god. Although it is only a weak divine power, it has just been conferred a god, but no matter what, it is still a true god. As the direct son of a true god, Yuan Hong inherited his father's blood. When he opened up the realm of the gods, he had a little extra divinity in addition to the basic divinity. 1. The ranking has always been hovering between the first and second of the whole class, and a single show can be ranked in the top 10 even in the whole class. On the other side, one of the 4 classmates was a very tall, muscular man like a little giant. This one was also a descendant of a true god, but not the first generation of gods, but the second generation of gods. Although he failed to obtain the innate extra divinity, his extraordinary power of awakening is very powerful, and his grades have been hovering in the top 5 in the class, and in the top 50 in the whole grade. In addition, there are several very strong classmates, such as Meng Wei, Zhao Erju, Yi Shaoer, etc. Although their backgrounds are not as good as these 2, they are also very powerful with their acquired efforts. Generally speaking, outstanding students are in direct competition, especially the top 10, top 5, top 3, so almost each of these 5 has their own small circle, and many students like to attach themselves to these estimates and call them strong next to classmates. Lin Xiao has no interest in these and does not cling to any classmates. As far as his grades in the middle of the class, he does not constitute a competition or threat to anyone, and his relationship with other students is naturally not salty or indifferent. He can say hello when they meet, but only by saying hello. However, this situation is expected to change after this thorough test. The golden finger is turned on, and he can no longer salt the fish. After saying hello to the classmates next to him, he silently leaned in the corner and closed his eyes. There is no way. There are 50 students in the class, and there are no beautiful female classmates. This is hell. After about 10 minutes, all the classmates arrived, and 2 extraordinarily dazzling golden lights descended from the sky accompanied by a powerful pressure. Lin Xiao immediately opened his eyes and saw 2 figures shrouded in a faint golden light. One of them was a middle-aged man in a black suit and tie. This was their head teacher, Wu Hai, a high-level demigod with erudite priesthood. Another young man in a white shirt is Zheng Wenjuo, their tutor, an ordinary demigod with therapy. The head teacher Wu Hai swept over all the students present with his stressful eyes, and a smile appeared on his face when he passed over some of the students who were closest to him. These are the students with the best grades in the class. The last test of the first year of high school starts today, and the final exam will be held at the beginning of next month. There will be no extra major classes during this period, so this is your last chance to catch up. Chapter 7 The Bottom-Up Test begins. Wu Hai announced the news expressionlessly, then flipped his hand, and a stack of cards emitting a faint golden light flew out from the palm of his hand and spread out in front of him, saying, "This time, the difficulty of the bottom-up test will be higher than before, but it is basically within the scope of your response. Considering that some students have a gap in their current strength, if you feel that you cannot pass the test, you can contact the teacher to give up, but if you give up, it means the test is aborted, and I will use the score before you give up." After a pause, he took out a stack of slightly thinner cards from his pocket, spread it out, and continued. "This time, due to the extra difficulty, the rewards will be increased on the basis of the previous ones. A designated 1-star card will be awarded between the 11th and 20th in the class, a designated 2-star card will be awarded for the top 10, and a designated 2-star card will be awarded for the third. The first place will be awarded a 3-star card on top of the 2-star card, and the second place will be awarded a 4-star card on top of the 2-star card." Speaking of this, he paused, and said in the eyes of many students with surprise and anticipation, "The first place in this preliminary test will receive a 5-star card of a specified type, which will greatly improve your strength, so please students, work hard." Lin Xiao noticed that the teacher's eyes were on the top 5 students in the class who ranked in the top 5 in the past, and those who ranked below the middle of the class like him directly ignored it. Sure enough, poor students are not taken seriously. Although I'm used to it, it still feels good to be ignored like this. This made Lin Xiao more determined that he must pass the test this time. Whether the teacher paid attention or not was one thing, mainly because of the 5-star card that could be assigned a type, which was a good thing. You must know that divine beings like them who have just opened up the realm of the gods are not even demigods. The highest level cards that can be used are 5-star cards. 5-star and above are called demigod cards. As for true gods, god cards are generally used. Each student has a limited number of cards used in high school, which must be the use of advanced cards to maximize their strength. At this time, the head teacher's voice sounded again. "The rules of this thorough test are the same as before. You can go back and prepare now." After speaking, Lin Xiao only felt a strong surge coming, and flew out of the hall involuntarily. Before leaving the hall, he vaguely saw that some classmates did not leave like him, Wu Hai and Zheng Wenjuo also still in the hall. "The teacher is so biased. I vaguely heard the complaint of a classmate." He shrugged and didn't respond. According to the previous test habits, the teacher will start testing the enemy's invasion of the god's domain the day after the announcement, so the students can immediately enter the god's domain to prepare, or go the next day, but basically the students enter the god's domain immediately and prepare early. Lin Xiao also thought so, and immediately entered the god's domain login device and began to connect to the god's domain. Coming to god's domain again, a dozen or so new murlocs were added during this time, but more than a dozen old murlocs also died, and the overall balance was even, but his followers were a few fewer. Fortunately, with the birth of a new generation of murlocs, they have received tribal belief education since childhood. The newborn murlocs have at least the belief of shallow believers when they become adults, and nearly 1/3 of them have true beliefs and become true believers. And all this as they grow older. All true believers can get the pre-loaded salted fish thrusting skills and their strength increases greatly, which greatly stimulates the shallow believers, and a considerable number of shallow believers have increased their beliefs to become true believers. Up to now, the tribe has a total of 654 murlocs, including 19 mad believers, 68 devout believers, and 116 shallow believers. The remaining 451 murlocs are all true believers. This ratio is already quite good. After all, the lifespan of murlocs is too short, with a lifespan of more than 10 years and less than 20 years. A standard human shallow believer can provide 0.1 points of faith per day, while the murlocs, a weak race, can provide only 1/5 of the faith of humans. Therefore, a murloc shallow believer can provide 0.02 points of faith per day, which is almost useless. True believers can provide 0.2 points, although it is still very few, but at least the number of murlocs is quite large, and the reproduction is fast. Now 451 true believers can accumulate 90.2 points of faith for Lin Xiao in one day. A devout believer can provide 1 point of faith per day, and now there are 68 devout believers in the murloc tribe, which can provide 68 points of faith per day. Fanatical faith can provide 10 points of faith a day. He now has 19 mad believers, which can provide 190 points of faith a day, and the most faith points are provided with the least amount. Therefore, high-quality believers are the most precious wealth of a god. Taken together, Lin Xiao relied on this group of murlocs to gain around 350 faith points every day. However, this is the most ideal state. In fact, the belief value he gains every day is stable at around 270 or 80 points. The main reason is that believers provide faith points, and they must pray earnestly according to the rituals prescribed by the church to maximize the effect, and everyone knows the nature of the murlocs. It is more difficult for them to pray earnestly according to the prescribed rituals than to ascend to the sky. It's nature, and it can't be changed, so Lin Xiao's belief value harvested every day can only be between 60 to 70% in theory. But even so, he accumulated 270-80 points every day, and in the past, his total accumulated faith point has exceeded 500,000. It looks like a lot, but it doesn't work at all. Not to mention that the transactions between God's domain players are based on faith points other than barter, not to mention upgrading family members and other expenses, etc., but these 500,000 faith points are actually not many, just used to convert them into divine power is not enough. According to the ratio of belief value to divine power, 1 million belief points can only be converted into 1 divine power, and these 500,000 points cannot be converted into 1. However, although it still lacks a bit of divine power, at least 500,000 faith points, which is not bad among the newly born divine beings who have just opened up the divine realm for less than a year. Sure enough, as soon as the golden finger was turned on, he was about to take off. It was only 100 years ago that he accumulated a little divine power, and now he has accumulated a little in less than 7 or 8 years. The speed is not sure how many times faster, and this speed will become faster and faster with the development of his divine realm, and it will be 2 years later. It is not impossible to achieve a little magic power in 1 year when the college entrance examination is about to happen. After a bit of emotion, Lin Xiao cheered up, and first released a divine metaphor by consuming 654 units of faith point, which is equivalent to a believer needing to consume a little. The consumption is not large now, but in the future, the consumption will be large if there are more believers. If there are hundreds of thousands or millions of believers, one divine metaphor will be a few tens of millions of belief points. Therefore, by that time, there are usually some divine prophecies that the voters can convey directly. Chapter 8 Snake Man. In the boundless void outside God's domain, A tall figure shrouded in mysterious golden light is standing outside the crystal wall of God's domain and secretly observing God's domain. When did this kid have so many high-quality believers? The head teacher Wu Hai looked at Lin Xiao's divine realm in surprise. His eyes swept over the more than 600 gray mist murlocs, and then landed on Lin Xiao's avatar who was mobilizing his faith. He nodded and said, "It seems that I have worked hard during this time. If so, I will arrange this card for you." He stretched out his forefinger and middle finger and threw a card between them. The card quickly collapsed and turned into a golden mist. Under the restraint of divine power, it turned into a golden rainbow bridge and flew into the realm of the gods. Lin Xiao, who had been staying in the god's domain, immediately noticed that a foreign object had entered the god's domain. At the same time, the light curtain popped up in front of him, and a system prompt sounded. "There are intruders building a portal, and the first intruders are coming in 15 minutes. Please prepare yourself." His heart froze, and the eyes of the avatars in the Murloc tribe flashed, and they raised the newly forged bone knife in their hands and roared loudly. "Children, the invaders have arrived, and the Lord of the Grey Mist is watching us. It's time to show our strength and courage." The fish people who have been mobilized for a long time waved their weapons and screamed. Although they were messy, their morale was high. Lin Xiao, who was accustomed to the Murloc style, was quite satisfied with this, and rushed out of the tribe first, followed by a large group of Murlocs. This time, he didn't bring out all the Murlocs, only about 3/4 of them, that is, almost all the true believers and devout believers in the tribe. All of them learned the skill of stabbing salted fish. The pan-believers in the early 100s who stayed in the tribe did not learn the salted fish thrusting, and their fighting power was limited, so they would not be taken out to die. Although the final exam is not as dangerous as the midterm and final exam, it is not easy. If the operation is not good, the loss will be heart-wrenching. Although they are all students, they are already divine creatures after all. In the super fantasy divine civilization of the Human Federation, it may be equivalent to a newborn baby, but some small planes in the primal chaos sea crystal wall system can be regarded as a commander of wind and rain. Strong. The training method of the strong naturally cannot stay in school every day like ordinary students. They have to face various dangers to temper. Every big class, every test, is a test, and if you are not careful, your family will suffer heavy losses. Many students accidentally caused their vitality to be severely damaged, and thus fell into a state of sluggishness. From then on, they sank, and until they graduated from high school, they could only be ordinary divine creatures, and they would never be able to become demigods in their entire lives. As always, the invasion portal is built in the upper left corner of the Dominion. The terrain of his god's domain is like this. There is only a coastline on the left edge, and the tribe is in the lower left corner. As long as it is not an aquatic invasive creature, it can only appear in the upper left corner. A pitch-black light gate with a diameter of 3 meters and a wave-like light on the surface hangs like a black hole in the air 1 meter away from the beach. A humanoid creature protruded from the arch, and a sharp object pierced the dim light, revealing a blood-stained spear. "Hey, glass is up." A snake man with a height of about 2 meters, a humanoid upper body, and a snake tail that is more than 3 meters in the lower body emerged from the portal, smashed a small pit into the sand with a blood-stained spear in his hand, and opened his mouth to reveal the forked sharp tongue probed for the smell in the air, and said slowly, "I smell the sea, and there are a lot of fresh little fishmen." At this time, the second equally strong snake man came out of the portal. The forked snake letter kept expanding and contracting, a bone staff in his hand slammed on the beach, and his long and narrow eyes flickered. "I smell heresy." Reaching out to hold a gem-embedded skull at the top of the bone staff, he said in a hoarse voice, "The great glass told me to kill all the Murlocs in this sea." The first snake man to come out lifted the thick spear and turned around, holding the spear high in his hand, and roared loudly, "Glass warriors, come out." The dim light of the portal bulged quickly, and a slightly smaller snake man emerged from it, followed by the second and third, and soon a total of 20 Murlocs emerged. This test is a little too difficult. Lin Xiaojun, who has been paying attention to God's domain, frowned. Although there are only 22 snake people in this group, their strength is a bit strong. At least half a month ago, he had to fight for his life, and he must be damaged in battle. Only the family can defeat it. The Grey Mist Murlocs belong to a low-level race, and they belong to a race that can't be any lower. The average combat power is half that of goblins. Well, it will be stronger in water. And the snake people belong to the middle race. Even if they have not been promoted at the most basic level, their racial talent also makes them have the combat power to crush the Grey Fog Murlocs, especially the two leaders. They will definitely not be inferior to the second-level arms, and even occupation is also uncertain. This configuration is slightly difficult for the top students in the class, but it is super difficult for the bottom students. If it weren't for the golden finger being turned on, years of accumulation would be transformed into strength. And if it was still in the early 100s of the previous Murlocs, it is estimated that at least 1/3 of the Murlocs would have to lose to pass this test. But there is no if in the world. Today is different from the past. Now that his strength has soared, Lin Xiao's confidence is also full. The Murloc leader incarnated and rushed out of the tribe with more than 500 Grey Fog Murlocs, rushing in a messy formation toward the Snake Men team that had just left the portal. There are no tactics at all. And the Murlocs can't command. Anyway, the number of people has an absolute advantage, and a wave of A's directly passes by with a mouse circle. More than 500 Murlocs gathered, and the number was quite large. Anyway, it was dark on the edge of the long and narrow beach. The snake people on the other side were indeed startled when they saw so many Grey Mist Murlocs at first, but they soon showed a hideous smile. 20 snake people lined up in a row. The leader of the snake people raised the blood-stained spear and screamed. "The Great Glass is watching us, kill all the little Murlocs, and Glass will give us more power." The other leader of the snake man with the bone staff did not speak, but silently raised the bone staff in his hand. A gem-embedded eye with a skull at the end of the staff lit up, and strands of blood gushed out into a blood mist and flew towards all the snake people. The pupils of all the snake people where they passed were red, and their spears were also stained with a layer of blood. Serpent Man Magic. Boil blood. Improve fighting spirit and improve weapon sharpness. After being blessed by this god, the fighting spirit of the snake people is high, and at the same time, it has the effect of alleviating pain and fear. The Snake Man, who already has an absolute advantage in single combat power, has added magical skills, and the combat power is stronger. It is estimated that a sharper spear can stab a Murloc to death with one shot. The two sides approached quickly, and the snake people leaned forward under the leadership of the leader, posing a charge. Chapter 9: The Head Teacher's Surprise and Praise. Call the Tide. Just when the snake people were about to charge, Lin Xiao, who was above the battlefield, suddenly stretched out his hand, and a full 100,000 faith points evaporated, and the extraordinary power, calling ridicule, was used. In the next second, the sea water within a few hundred meters of the shallow sea at the edge of the battlefield was bound by an invisible force. Without wind, a large wave nearly 300 meters long and 2 meters high surged towards the crowd of snake people and fish that just started rushing out. The impact of the big wave is not large, but it is enough to smash the snake people in the charge. For the amphibious Murlocs, although they were also washed up in a mess, the Murlocs were naturally easier to adapt to this change than terrestrial creatures, and quickly stabilized their bodies. Lin Xiao's incarnation was the first to react, raising the bone knife in his hand and shouting, "Lord of Grey Mist, Lord of Endless Tides, Lord of the Seven Seas, please grant me the power to kill the enemy. Activate the skill, Salted Fish Assault. Cut through the sea like a shark's dorsal fin, shoot a straight line at super fast speed, and hit the leader of the snake man who was surging with the tide and could not stabilize his body for a while, with a bone knife in his hand to separate the air, snake scales. The flesh and blood penetrated deeply into the snake leader's chest, and the blade tip came out through his back. At the same time as he stepped back, the other Murlocs screamed and activated their skills, turning into phantoms of Murlocs and entering the crowd of snakes. Hundreds of Murlocs rushed forward and collided with more than 20 snake men, each of which could not withstand 5 blows. More than half of them were stabbed 5 times by salted fish on the spot, forcibly torn to pieces, and blood spilled into the water to dye a large beach red. In a square god realm with a length and width of about 6 kilometers, a big battle is taking place in the center of a wide canyon. A large group of about 400 kobolds in leather armor, with hoes in their left hands and shovels in the right hands, were lining up in a long snake formation. They were joining a large group of kobolds that were slightly larger than the kobolds, carrying iron swords with embroidered embroidery, of skeletons scuffled together. On a raised stone behind the kobold formation stood a red-haired, red-skinned old kobold with a wooden staff, surrounded by several kobold guards. I saw the old kobold lift the wooden staff in his hand, and a red light on the top of the wooden staff quickly condensed into a big basketball-like fireball. With the wave of the old kobold staff, the fireball flew over the kobold's defense line and fell into the skeleton, in the group. Boom! I saw an earth-shattering loud noise, and a circle of flames exploded in an instant covering a range of 5*5 meters. The skeletons in it instantly turned into firemen, quickly burned into ashes, fell into the flames and disappeared. It is good. Wu Hai, the head teacher who was fighting outside the god realm, clapped his hands and said hello, and said to the tutor Zheng Wenjuo next to him. Meng Hui's performance has been getting better and better recently. It is extremely rare to be able to train kobolds to this level. With the numerical advantage of kobolds, he ranks in the top 5 in the class. Zheng Wenjuo nodded and said, he also has a kobold warlock who has initially activated his bloodline. If he can completely activate his bloodline to become a kobold dragon warlock before his lifespan is exhausted, his future achievements will never be low. Speaking of which, Zheng Wenjuo sighed and said, unfortunately, this step is too difficult. Wu Hai smiled and said, not necessarily, this time to test me. Wu Hai, who was talking eloquently, suddenly frowned and showed a surprised expression. What happened? Zheng Wenjuo said oddly, what's wrong? Wu Hai showed a look of surprise and said, someone has defeated all the invaders. So fast. Zheng Wenjuo immediately became interested and said, which one is it, Yuanong or Wanchuan? Or Zhao or Zhu or Yi Shao? Neither. Wu Hai flicked his sleeves, the two had disappeared, and they reappeared on the edge of Lin Shao's divine realm. What they saw was a scene of a large group of murlocs carrying a dozen snake men corpses all the way back to the tribe. He stretched out his hand, and the light curtain popped open in front of him, showing the current picture on it. Backtrack. As he chanted lightly, the light curtain screen in front of him began to regress, and soon back to the time when the portal had just opened. As time passed, the two of them showed shock on their faces at the same time, looked at each other. Zheng Wenjuo said, this skill, the explosive power is so high, at least extremely rare quality. It's a pity that it was wasted on murlocs. The strength of this race is too low, and there is almost no potential for growth. After a moment of silence, the head teacher Wu Hai said, I can't say that. The initial stage is basically the same. As long as you can use this rare card to gain enough advantages in the early stage, it's not enough. After becoming a demigod in the future, you can find a way to improve your family's bloodline, or even change to other powerful ones in the future. The main battle race, this can also be used as the secondary main battle race. With the reproduction ability and number of murlocs, it is not bad to be cannon fodder. Speaking of this, he didn't continue chatting. He stretched out his finger a little, and a light curtain popped up, displaying Lin Shao's information. You have a new message, do you want to check it? In God's domain, Lin Shao suddenly received a message. Seeing that it was from the head teacher, he answered it immediately, and it was rare to hear the head teacher's laughter. Lin Shao, you performed very well in this fundamental test, the teacher is very pleased. He pouted silently, it was really vulgar, I have never seen you so happy before. However, he is still very happy to complain. As a student, it is a good thing for teachers to pay attention, especially for students like him. You must know that many rare cards in the early stage are only available in schools, even if the true gods may not have them. Otherwise, why would those true gods send their direct descendants to schools to lay a solid foundation for future generations? The school resources plus the resources of parents or elders can make they go further. Just like Lin Shao's parents can prepare resources for him until he becomes a demigod, but his upper limit ends there. If there is no golden finger, it is almost impossible to become a true god. At this time, the head teacher Wu Hai said again, up to now, no other students have completed the test, so this time the first place in the thorough test is you. Lin Shao was overjoyed, and an uncontrollable smile appeared on his face. Head teacher Wu Hai added, According to the rules I said before, you will get a random 2-star card and a 5-star card of a designated type. In addition, you will have a chance to take a very difficult extra test, and you will be the first in each test. There will be names, you can choose to have them or not. After a pause, he continued. The extra test is very difficult. Even Yuan Hong, who was the first in the class, only succeeded once, failed twice, and gave up twice. Lin Xiao hesitated for a while, silent as if thinking. To be honest, it was the first time he heard that there would be an additional test after the thorough test. This should be the treatment of the best students in the class. He had been hovering around 25 before, and he was definitely not qualified to know. The head teacher reiterated its difficulty and danger twice, which made Lin Xiao dare not be careless, and after a little thought, he said, "Can you let me know the specific difficulty and what the reward is if you successfully pass the extra test?" Chapter 10 Legendary Quality 5-Star Card. Can. As the voice fell, a sudden change in the light curtain in front of him condensed the phantom of the head teacher. He stretched out his hands and spread his palms. His left hand was a 20-sided crystal dice, and his right hand was a card that was enveloped by divine light and could not be seen clearly. Wu Hai held the dice and card in both hands and said, "Next, I will let you roll this dice yourself." The number displayed on the top of the dice after the dice stops rolling represents the strength of the test you need to accept next. If the number above is 2, then you will face twice as many enemies as you faced in the previous test. If the number above is 20, then you will face 20 times as many enemies as you faced in the previous test. You can use any power in the realm of the gods, including the direct arrival of the real body. Then the head teacher held up the card in his right hand, and with a flash of light, the card revealed its true face. 5-Star God's Domain Card. Fertile Land Legend. Increase the area of God's domain by 2 km * 2 km at one time, limiting the fertile land. I go. Lin Xiao's eyes almost popped out. It turned out to be a 5-star card that increased the area of God's domain, and the quality was so high. Legend of Orange. This is the first time he has seen it. To know that the rarities of cards are from low to high, common, rare, uncommon, epic, legendary, and golden myth. It is said that there are more rare cards on the golden myth, but even the orange legend level is already a super rare card, let alone the myth level, and the higher level has never heard of it, let alone seen it. One-time increase of 2 km * 2 km of God's domain, which is more than half of Lin Xiao's current God's domain, and it is also limited to fertile land, which is even more rare. Even if his main race is Murloc and not suitable for farming, it does not prevent him from longing for this card. Now that the main race is a Murloc, it does not mean that it has always been a Murloc. The races in the God's domain can be changed, and other races can be added. The Murlocs cannot farm, so get some other races that can farm. Almost instantly, Lin Xiao had decided that this extra test must be tried, and this kind of good opportunity should not be missed. How is it? Are you excited? The head teacher Wu Hai saw the movement on his face and said, "You think carefully. If you are unlucky and throw too many points, the enemies that appear will cause a devastating blow to your God's domain, and you may be devastated and sink." The head teacher's voice contained a trace of divine power, and like Hong Zhong Dalu, he woke up Lin Xiao, who had fallen into a frenzy. Calmed down from the frenzy, he began to analyze the pros and cons. Indeed, as the head teacher said, the difficulty of this extra test is indeed very lucky. If you are lucky, you can only throw a few points, and he can still block it with several times of extra difficulty. If you are a little less lucky and get more than 7 or 8 times the difficulty, you will not be able to play. Maybe you can go all out and make a real shot. It's okay, but it's too risky to do so. The actual strength of the player is related to the comprehensive strength of the God's domain. The more believers, the stronger the player who is the lord of the God's domain. The fewer believers, the weaker the player who is the lord of the God's domain. But a new player like them who has just opened up the God's domain will not be strong no matter how strong it is. If faced with more than 10 times the difficulty, more than 200 snake people and 20 snake people leaders, even if he is actually dispatched, not necessarily a win. Even if you can win, it will be a tragic victory. It doesn't matter if you lose. With the head teacher here, when God's domain is damaged to a certain extent, he will come to the rescue, just like a stop-loss line. The focus is on the real body. If the real body is damaged, the impact will be great. Divine creatures have powerful powers when they receive divine blessings and transmutation. Once they are injured, it is very difficult to recover. This is not a general healing magic. It must consume a lot of divine power, or fall into a deep sleep and slowly recover. This slumber will take hundreds of years, and it will take hundreds of days in the main world, which will greatly affect the progress of growth, or it can be said to be abolished in advance. Why bah, it would be better if it was a little later. Lin Xiao was already reeling in his heart, and he regained his calm and rational thinking. He knew that the risk of this additional test was too high, even if the card to increase the area of the god's domain was extremely rare, but... and many more. He suddenly raised his head and asked, "Teacher, can I get the reward of this thorough test first and try again?" Wu Hai was stunned for a moment, then subconsciously said, "Do you really want to try?" He replied, "Okay, I have 4 5-star cards here, you can choose one from them." 5-star species reproduction card, rare, species fertility rate plus 300%, survival rate plus 300%, duration 10 years. 3-star arms card, wild boar rider, normal, summons 300 level 3 bear goblin wild boar riders at one time. Note: equipped with standard weapons and 5-day rations. 5-star resource card, sheep flock, normal, summons 500 sheep at one time. Note: half male and half female. 5-star weapon card, short spear, normal, get 1000 short spears at one time. Note: the spear body is wood, and the spear head is refined iron. Glancing at the 4 cards, Lin Xiao's eyes lit up when he saw the second and last cards. It's not what I expected. The reward cards given by the head teacher must be of various types for students to choose from. He guessed that there is a high probability that there will be weapons. In fact, there are not only weapons, he also found a class card, a card that can directly summon 300 bear goblin wild boar knights whose strength has reached the 3rd level. Whether the weapon card or the knight card can greatly enhance his strength, so that he has enough confidence to try additional tests. However, Lin Xiao had a hard time deciding which one to choose. Generally speaking, it is better to choose the boar rider, which is real-time combat power and is more stable than weapon cards. But actually he couldn't choose this because he couldn't afford it. The bear goblin is more than 2 meters tall, and has a strong and fierce body. Hog rider. The most important thing is that these goblin bears are all male and cannot reproduce. In other words, this thing is purely consumable, one-time use. Although the weapon card is also a consumable, it can increase the overall strength of the Murloc tribe. The most important thing is that even if the weapon is damaged, the fine iron gun head can be recovered, not a one-time use. Just the weapon card. He said so. The teacher didn't say anything about this, just took out the weapon card and handed it to him, and then took out a large stack of cards and said to him, "You still have a 2-star card, what type do you need?" Resource card, preferably food such as fish. Here's a 2-star cod card. Wu Hai took out a card and flew it into Lin Xiao's hand. When he flipped over, all the cards disappeared, only the 20-sided crystal dice in his left palm looked at him. Chapter 11 Extra Test. With the weapon card in hand, Lin Xiao no longer hesitated, and said in a deep voice, "I decided to take this extra test." Very good. The head teacher threw the crystal dice in front of Lin Xiao. He stretched out his hand and grabbed it. He was surprised to find that it was a special strange object that could isolate the influence of any power, including divine power. To throw this thing out, how many points can be thrown depends on luck. Call. He held the dice and blew a breath and threw it. The crystal dice fell on the invisible light curtain in front of him and rolled a few times, and a number 11 appeared in front of him. "I lost it." Lin Xiao's face immediately collapsed. "This is very bad luck. 11 times the difficulty, it's simple." The head teacher Wu Hai's face is not very good looking, showing a trace of shock, and said, "Your luck is not very good, try your best." He couldn't do anything about this result. Although he wished that all students could become talents, the resources in his hands were not unlimited, and he could only give them to the best performing students. To evaluate whether a student is good enough or not is the performance in each major class and test. Lin Xiao's performance this time surprised him, but with such bad luck, he couldn't help it. You have a month to prepare. After Wu Hai said this, the projection turned into a golden light and left God's domain. Pity, pity. He and his tutor Zheng Wenjuo sighed at the same time, looked at each other. Wu Hai said, "You stare first, I'll look elsewhere." In God's domain, compared to the two teachers who almost sentenced him to death, Lin Xiao himself was not too depressed. Although the difficulty of 11 times is terrible, he is not completely powerless to resist. Only the most loss will be huge, but if he can complete the test and get the God's domain card, it will play an unimaginable role in his future development. It is really rare that the God's domain card is too rare, and it is still a 5-star God's domain card that cherishes the extraordinary quality, and the increased type of God's domain land is so good, it can almost change the overall structure of his God's domain, making him a one-time direct transformation. His current divine domain is basically water, which is okay in the early stage, but will severely restrict his development in the middle and late stages. The type of a God's domain must not be single. Singleness is strong in certain aspects, but it also means a huge weakness. His God's domain arm has only one Murloc race. If it does not change, it can only increase the aquatic race in the future. This configuration is almost invincible in water combat, but not in other environments. When he is in his second year of high school next year, the difficulty of the usual big classes and monthly quizzes will be greatly increased, especially the monthly thorough examination. There is a high probability that they will try to invade some extremely small plane fragments, which requires going to a different environment. If the waters are the same, if the invading plane is the desert plane, the arid Gobi plane, wouldn't his aquatic race not even be able to pass the past? A long time ago, Lin Xiao thought about how to transform in the future. Now that the opportunity is in front of him, how could he not seize it? The preparation time for a month was not long, and he immediately descended on the Murloc leader's body and summoned the Murlocs of the entire tribe to gather in the center of the tribe. This time, he didn't do anything stupid. He directly announced that a very powerful enemy would invade soon, and the Great Lord of Grey Mist gave weapons to help. Then, the prayer ceremony began. There is no need to find a reason, but the rituals that should be there are still required. After all, this is a world of gods, and the mystery and majesty of gods must be maintained in front of believers at all times. More than 600 Murlocs gathered around the central altar of the tribe. The number seemed to be quite considerable. There was a large black mass. However, after so many months, it was estimated that they would die. As the prayer came to an end, accompanied by a melodious singing voice, a golden portal phantom appeared above the altar, which looked like the gate of the kingdom of heaven. Two seemingly powerful warriors in golden armor opened the gate of heaven, and a team slapped big little angels flew out and sang around the gates of heaven. The Murlocs around the altar were stunned when they saw this. Lin Xiao coughed heavily when he saw this, and many Murlocs quickly lowered their heads and prayed more devoutly. At this moment, Lin Xiao, who was above the sky, felt that at this moment, more than 50 true believers had become devout believers. It's a pity to ride a horse. But the arrow is already on the string, and it is too late to regret it. As a dazzling golden light shot from the gate of heaven to the altar, the gate of heaven slowly became illusory and finally disappeared. On the altar, there were piles of short spears that were only 1.5 meters long, a total of 1,000. The Murloc leader stepped up to the altar, pulled out a short spear and held it high, roaring loudly. "This is the weapon given to us by the Great Lord of Grey Mist. Children, take up the weapon and defeat the invaders." A short spear flew out, and the nearest Grey Fog Murloc subconsciously reached out to catch the short spear, looked up and saw the leader's oppressive gaze, and subconsciously knelt down to the holy sign on the altar and shouted, "The Great Lord of Grey Mist is above, your devout believers are willing to offer your humble lives for you." Very good. The Murloc leader pulled out another short spear and threw it at another Murloc warrior, watching him loudly declare his oath. Short spears were thrown out, and the Grey Mist Murlocs took up the short spears to swear. This is the fanaticism of religion. When the atmosphere is sufficient, when there are enough people with the same idea, they will always change other people's ideas involuntarily. This is the role of the mind, but also the role of the spirit. The two are superimposed. Even if a non-believer stays in the tribe for a long time, he will involuntarily generate belief. It only took 1 day to distribute the weapons. The first part of the Murloc warriors and the most devout group of Murlocs followed this process, and it was unnecessary later, because over time, the fanatical spirit would calm down, and then mobilizing emotions would be twice the result with half the effort. All the Grey Mist Murlocs distributed weapons, and Lin Shao personally led them to train and become proficient with weapons. The short spear is actually one of the most suitable weapons for Murlocs, and it can also exert the power of the salted fish stabbing skill. Using the bone knife and stone awl to release the skill is more powerful than using the fine iron spear head to release the skill. A month has passed, and Lin Shao's incarnation has been leading the training of the Murlocs. At this time, all the Murlocs have been able to use this skill with new weapons. As the time came, Lin Shao, who was above the dome of God's domain, felt that the entire God's domain shook slightly, and the portal that had appeared once again appeared. Teams of snake people walked out of the portal under the leadership of stronger snake people leaders, arranged in a matrix. On the other side of the coastline, the entire Murloc tribe was also boiling. Under his command, all Murlocs in the entire tribe walked out of the tribe and gathered outside the tribe, rushing to the north of the beach in a messy formation as before. Chapter 12 Fighting. Viewed from a high altitude, a group of snake people and a group of fish people are rapidly approaching on the long and narrow beach. It only took about 10 minutes for the distance of about 3 kilometers to see each other's figures. There are about 600 Murlocs coming out of the nest, and there are also 220 snakemen, and their size is much larger than that of Murlocs. Bigger and bigger, it doesn't seem to be much smaller. According to the racial disparity, normally more than 600 Murlocs would never be able to beat more than 200 snakemen, and 100 would be enough. But now this is Lin Shao's divine domain, he has home field advantage, and a salted fish stab. When the distance between the two sides was less than 100 meters, his real body appeared in the sky above the Murlocs on the battlefield, turning into a huge Murloc phantom shrouded in divine golden light, and the Murloc leader incarnated by Lin Shao immediately raised his weapon and shouted, "The great Lord of the Grey Mist is watching us, boys." When he showed his true body, all the Grey Mist Murlocs felt it and raised their heads in unison. At this moment, seeing their beliefs descend in person, all the Murlocs became enthusiastic. At this moment, more than 100 Murlocs changed their faith from true believers to devout believers, and all pan-believers became true believers. 10 Murlocs turned from devout believers into fanatics. If it were replaced by the usual appearance of so many devout believers in an instant, Lin Shao would definitely be ecstatic, but this time he couldn't be happy. Because his real body came, and a will full of malice locked himself. Before that, although he also stayed in the realm of the gods, he was on another level where only gods could exist, not the material plane inside the realm of the gods. At that level, he can observe the entire divine realm, and no one can see him no matter where he goes, but now he has appeared on the material plane from the level where only gods can exist, and a certain word is used to describe it as real body coming. If it was normal, it would not be so good for the real body to come, but in the current state, his real body came, representing his real body to participate in this invasion battle. The most important thing is that he was locked by another demigod, that is, the will full of malice. The snake man didn't come out of thin air, even if it was summoned with a card. Behind that portal is another snake man dominated plane, the existence called glass is a snake man demigod, he stared at it. On the Lin Shao, the new divine life. Within the scope of the rules, it would have been impossible for him to reach Lin Shao. After all, this was just a test, although the summoned snake man was from the plane where glass was. But when Lin Shao's real body appeared in person, he was immediately perceived by him. According to the rules, Lin Shao's real body participated in the battle, then glass could shoot him according to the rules, and these snake men were the extension of his will. He can use these snake men to attack Lin Shao. Lin Shao, as the master of the new god realm who has received a complete theoretical education on gods, of course understands this, but he has no choice. If he wants to win this extra test, and he doesn't want his family to lose too much, he must take risks. When the snake man and the Murloc rushed out at the same time and were about to approach, Lin Shao immediately stretched out his hand, so he summoned a tide. The extraordinary power, tide summoning, has a huge difference between the incarnation and the real body. It also consumes only 100,000 faith points to summon the waves. The incarnation has a range of only a few hundred meters. The sea rises, and it hits the battlefield with its head and face covered. Several murlocs in the snake crowd, who were estimated to be priests, raised their bone rods to cast spells at the same time, and pieces of red light bloomed to bless all the snake people with divine magic. In the next second, a huge wave swept the sky and covered the earth, and instantly drowned the entire battlefield. Whether the snake man or the murloc was swept up by the sea water at the same time, he washed up on the beach, and then slipped into the shallow sea with the ebb of the huge wave. From a beach to a shallow sea area. This area is the area that extends from the beach to the sea, and the sea water extends from half a meter to 1 meter, and then extends to 2 meters. The tall snake men can still touch the beach with their tails and barely stabilize their figure, and the fish men are directly submerged. But murlocs are amphibious creatures. They are more flexible in water than on land. They quickly recovered from the tidal shock. A murloc rushed out of the water. At a glance, a murloc was swaying with the waves more than 10 meters away in front of the left. Immediately raised the short spear in his hand and aimed at the target. A large piece of seawater exploded with a bang, and a white line broke through the seawater and shot at the snake man at an ultra-fast speed. The strength of this snake man is indeed much stronger than that of the murloc, and he reacted quickly, screaming to stabilize his body, holding an iron sword in his arms and raising it high and slashing down. Puff, pff, 2 dull voices piercing the body sounded at the same time, and at the same time, large blood flowers exploded, quickly dyeing large areas of seawater. The snake man took a step back, covering the short spear that completely pierced his waist, while the murloc was cut in half by the snake man on the spot and died on the spot. A devout believer died, but Lin Xiao had no time to feel sad about it. This was just the beginning. At this moment, on the battlefield disrupted by his own wave of taunts, snakemen and murlocs erupted at the same time. Torn into a ball. In less than 10 seconds, 70% of the more than 40 murlocs near the murlocs were killed, and all the rest were seriously injured, but more than 30 murlocs were also stabbed by the stabbings of the murlocs before they died. The golden humanoid lightman incarnated by Lin Xiao sighed, the golden light behind his back skyrocketed, and 2 golden angels flew out to open a door of light. He stretched out his right hand and pressed it forward, and a small murloc flew out of all the dead murloc corpses. The phantom rose quickly, and soon disappeared into the door of light behind his head. The soul of these believers will be thrown into another dimension of the realm, the level he was in before. If it is said that it is the material plane of the realm of the gods at this time, the plane where the real body of the gods is usually located is commonly known as the plane of the kingdom of gods. All dead believers will enter there and be transformed into petitioners, or reincarnation. Reincarnation. Yes, it is reincarnation. He is the realm of the gods, not the kingdom of gods. The true God of the traditional different crystal wall system, the believer dies and enters the kingdom of God, will directly transform into a petitioner, directly restore to the peak state of life, and then receive different treatment according to the degree of belief. The lifespan of the petitioner is not infinite, it is still the lifespan of its own race, but it can live without disease and disaster until old age and death, and each time the petitioner dies, it will weaken a little. The nutrients are integrated into the kingdom of God. However, the divine domain of the main world God civilization is different. It combines the functions of the kingdom of God, the function of the main material plane, and the function of reincarnation. First of all, the gods of the main world call themselves new gods. Different from the traditional ancient gods of the different crystal walls, their gods belong to the combination of the material plane and the kingdom of God. One god has 2 interfaces, one is the material plane, and the other is the god's country. Living creatures live on the physical plane, and after death enter the kingdom of the gods. Chapter 13 Bloody Battle. Needless to say, becoming a petitioner is the same as the traditional old god. The biggest difference between the new god and the old god is the function of reincarnation. After all petitioners die too many times, the traditional old gods let the petitioners integrate into the kingdom of gods to strengthen the kingdom of gods, while the new gods let them reincarnate in the material plane of the gods, and live again. The biggest advantage of doing this is that after the petitioner's reincarnation, the soul is branded with the imprint of the Lord of the Divine Realm, and he is born close to the faith of the previous life. As long as he comes into contact with the faith of the Church, it is easy to accept the faith and become a devout believer. Repeating this, it is easy to accumulate a large number of devout believers in the material plane, and the faith points naturally pour in like flowing water. There are not many petitioners in Lin Shao's divine kingdom, only dozens of first-class Murloc warriors accumulated over the years, and all the other dead Murloc believers have been reincarnated. In fact, if he didn't want to make a few facades, he would have pulled all these Murloc warriors to reincarnation. The strength of the Murloc warriors at the first level is too weak, and they are not qualified to be cannon fodder. At least a warrior of the third level or above is qualified to be cannon fodder, and the guardian of the kingdom of God must be above the fourth level. Lin Shao was going to take the elite route. Let's not gossip. When he personally introduced the souls of these Murloc believers into the kingdom of God, the impact on the believers at this moment was unprecedented, because it was the first time for him to do this, and the effect was overwhelming, more than 70% in an instant. True believers became devout believers, and fanatical believers suddenly became 30 or 40. If he can survive this time, his beliefs will surge again. Seeing this scene, the Murloc leader raised his weapon and shouted, "Children, the great Lord of Grey Mist is watching over us at this time, killing all heretics." After speaking, he lowered his head and looked at a snake priest holding a bone staff in front of him. At this time, the snake priest raised the bone staff and shouted, "The great Glass has watched here. He told me that killing these heretics will bring Glass's pleasure." Before the words were finished, a figure had separated from the sea and killed before him. The snake priest who had reacted raised his bone staff and slammed it down. As soon as he opened his mouth, he saw a pair of golden pupils, which was breathtaking. The majesty made him stunned for a moment, but he felt a sharp pain in his chest. A mighty force rushed to his body and flew several meters into the air. He fell heavily into the sea water, and the icy sea water quickly drowned his consciousness. A short spear was pulled back and shot back into the sea water and slipped out more than 10 meters. The Murloc leader drilled out of the sea water and took a deep breath. At the moment of his shot, the fanatical fish people slaughtered the snake people one after another. The salted fish stabbing skills endow them with super fast speed and 5 times the lethality. Even if the snake body has a strong physique and the scales on the body surface are good in defense, it cannot defend against the kinetic energy impact of the fine iron short spear 5 times. The weapon summoned by the 5-star card is not bad. Even if there is no 5-fold burst, it can hurt the snake man. A Murloc broke through the sea water at super fast speed and pierced a snake man's body with a spear, and was immediately hacked to death by the counter-attacking snake man. Another Murloc stabbed at a strong snake man leader at the same super fast speed. The super fast snake man leader twisted his body to avoid the sting of the salted fish, and slashed it in half with a backhand knife. The grim face grinned and grabbed the short spear and was about to snatch it back. The next second, his body slammed, and a sharp spear tip pierced through his body. The angry snake man leader slashed the attacking Murloc with a backhand knife. But at this moment, 2 Murlocs targeted him at the same time. 2 short spears stabbed the snake man leader's waist and back one after the other, plus the last Murloc shot. 3 shots in a row passed through the body. Even the second-level snake man leader couldn't hold it. Seriously injured, the angry serpent leader roared up to the sky, the blood in his pupils soared, and turned over to kill 2 Murlocs who were temporarily exhausted because of the outbreak. But in the next second, 3 Murlocs shot out at the same time, and 3 guns passed through the body at the same time. This time, the 3 fish people behaved well. After hitting the target, they immediately abandoned their guns and rolled into the water. The sharp knife light cut through the sea, but they didn't touch anything. 7 shots in a row were all serious injuries that passed through the body. The leader of the snake man couldn't hold on any longer. His tall body swayed several times, and fell into the sea with a bang, and the blood quickly turned red a large piece. This is just a corner of the battlefield. The Murlocs, who are not the opponents of snake people at all, rely on the extremely rare 5-star skill card, Salted Fish Stab, to instantly exert up to 5 times the explosion. After the week and 10 minutes of cooldown, let the snake man fight back. But after all, it is a five-fold explosion, and with the sharpness of the fine iron short spear, even a second-level snake man leader can't withstand even a zero-level murloc outbreak. Lin Xiaojun stood at a high altitude overlooking the battlefield, and tall snake people kept falling down, but for every snake person that fell, there must be at least one murloc buried with him, and more murlocs were injured. He was silent for a while, then stretched out his finger again, using a first-level divine technique, the essence of seawater, and a full 100,000 faith points burned and evaporated. In the next second, countless blue stars rose in the seawater within a range of 100 meters * 100 meters below, and the murlocs quickly approached and merged into their bodies. The wounded murlocs recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. This magic is a healing magic, which is limited to use in the sea area. The basic belief value consumption is 10,000. Increasing the belief value consumption can greatly increase the power, and the effect is more obvious when he is used in his real body. However, after all, it is not a serious healing magic technique, and the effect of a large-scale magic technique is not always immediate, so at the most, it is possible to alleviate the physical consumption of the fish people after using the salted fish thrust, and it does not have much effect on the treatment. But this is enough, at least it can greatly increase the survival rate of the week period after the outbreak. More than 600 murlocs rushed forward one after another, each with a frenzied look on their faces, each of which had to face 2 or 3 murloc raids. This kind of raid can't be defended at all, except for the powerful snake man leader who can react in advance. Even if the ordinary snake man finds out in advance, he can't intercept it. But the strong physique of the snake people is difficult to kill in one blow, and their counterattacks are fatal to the weak murlocs after the outbreak. Every time a snake man falls, there must be 1 or 2 murlocs buried with him. In Lin Xiaoshan Hai, the lines of faith representing believers are broken one by one, and each broken one represents the death of a believer, which means the least number of true believers, and most of them are the disappearance of devout believers. Loss. But he can't do it himself. When the realm of the gods was just opened up, whether it was the teacher, the senior, or the parents, they all warned again and again that until the desperate situation, they must not take action in person. Now that his real body is here, he can at most use magical techniques or supernatural powers to assist him, but he must never play meatballs in person. Chapter 14 Misery and Victory. The power of the real body is very, very powerful. After all, it is a divine creature, and there is also the blessing of the home court of God's domain. One person can easily slaughter these 200 snake people. But if he really made a move, the snake demigod hiding behind the snake man would definitely take the opportunity to make a move. How could he, a little divine creature, be able to match a demigod? With a teacher watching over him, he will not be taken advantage of by the snake demigods to steal his divinity, but his vitality will definitely be severely damaged, which is fatal to his newborn divine life. Fortunately, his family members are powerful enough, and they are not timid even in the face of powerful snake people. The extremely rare quality of the salted fish stab also gave them the ability to resist. They rushed forward, each of which could cause huge damage to the target, and the murlocs died in battle, all accompanied by the death of the snakemen. Fall down. And the number of snake people is much lower than that of murlocs, and their pressure is weakened by 1 point for every snake person they fall. When the line of faith in Lin Xiaoshan Hai was only in the early 400s, the snake people also fell nearly half. The most important thing is that almost all the remaining snake people were injured, and almost all of them passed through the body's injury. The overall situation seems to be settled. He breathed a sigh of relief, as he expected. The individual combat effectiveness of the murlocs is definitely not as good as that of the snakemen, but they have the advantage of the home field and the number of people. The injured snakemen fell to the ground under the impact of the follow-up murlocs. Although some murlocs were continuously killed by counterattacks, the frequency of death was far less terrifying than the first wave, compared to the 1-to-2 exchange of the first wave. And now there is only a 1-to-1 exchange, which is basically a counterattack before the death of the snake man. No way, although the skill of salted fish stabbing is super high, but the sequelae are also big. With the murloc's physical strength, after a wave of explosions, he was almost unable to stand up. Either you died or I died. As the snake men fell one by one, the battle situation gradually became clear. Seeing that victory was about to be won, Lin Shao felt a little better because of the huge loss of believers. Although the loss is large, compared to the effect of a 5-star God's Domain card, this loss is still valuable, and it is not a loss. There was no reversal after that. The portal to summon snakemen is actually a card. The rules limit that only 220 snakemen, 200 ordinary snakemen, and 22nd level leader snakemen can pass through. Even the true god cannot break this rule and send more subordinates over. Therefore, as more and more snake people fell, the surviving snake people also fell into the siege, and there were murlocs who quickly recovered the weakness caused by the last outbreak through the seawater essence, and once again used the salted fish to stab into the battlefield. One by one the snakes were knocked down. It didn't take long for less than 10 snake people leaders to fall into a heavy circle. With their strong physique, they still didn't die, but it was also a matter of time. So far, Lin Shao once again used a super large range of seawater essence to restore the physical strength and injuries of his family. In addition to the last time he used extraordinary power to summon the tide, he used a full 300,000 faith points this time, and the 50 he accumulated before. 10,000 faith points are now only 200,000 points left. These costs are necessary and worthwhile. Now, as long as these murlocs can survive, all of them are devout believers, and all of them have accumulated enough combat experience to be promoted to first-level murloc warriors, and many of them have accumulated combat experience enough to promote them to second-level fish, man warrior. If you look at the combat power of these snake people leaders, you can see the combat power of the second-level murloc warriors. Perhaps because of the racial gap, they are not as good as the snake people, but they are definitely elite-level combat power among the first-year high school students. After all, everyone is a low-level race at the level of murlocs. Outside of God's domain, Zheng Wenjuo's expression at this time can be described as wonderful. Before the battle started, he didn't think that Lin Shao could pass this extra test at all. At first, he was still thinking about when this student, who usually kept a low profile and made a blockbuster in the last preliminary test of the semester, would ask him for help. However, the outcome of the battle was completely beyond his expectations. This student actually used the tactic of exchange, even at the cost of the death of a large number of family members, and actually consumed the snake people to death. More than 370 murlocs were killed on the spot, and countless wounded. The 220 snakemen were literally killed, which was completely beyond his expectations. Simply, thoughts lingered on his lips for a long time. He suddenly smiled and said, "Have a future. It has a future." The figure of the head teacher Wu Hai appeared out of thin air, and the card for summoning the snake man belonged to him. Of course, he knew that the summoned snake man was about to die, and immediately came over from another student god realm that he was optimistic about. He is not interested in knowing why this student was low-key in the past, nor is he interested in exploring why this student, who was obviously average in grades, suddenly became such a blockbuster. He only cares that this student is doing very well now. After this extra test is over, by merging the God Realm card, Lin Shao's God Realm will add a large piece of fertile land. The increase in the area of God's domain is one thing. The point is that the additional area is no longer the sea area, which directly solves the innate limitation of Lin Shao's original God's domain. A single God's domain has no future, and it must be diversified to have a future. With this land that is about half of the original God's domain, Lin Shao's God's domain can develop a second land race in the future. The battle in God's domain is coming to an end, and only the 2 blood-stained snake men leaders are still stubbornly resisting. Death is a matter of time. The head teacher Wu Hai smiled at his assistant. It seems that this month's bottom-up test is going to be a blast. Isn't this a good thing? You just observed the whole process. What do you think the potential of this student is? Zheng Wenjuo pondered for a while, then stretched out 4 fingers. 4-star preliminary evaluation. Although his family is not very good, the skills loaded are too powerful. If there is a chance to get a bloodline card to strengthen the race in the future, the potential will increase by leaps and bounds. Well, it's up to him to compete. Wu Hai doesn't have a bloodline card now, but the school has it. As long as the student's performance and potential meet the requirements, they can apply to the school for such a rare card that is extremely rare outside. And the premise of all this is performance and potential. And Lin Xiao's current potential is not enough for him to apply for this rare card. The battle is over. In the realm of the gods, the Murloc leader suddenly burst into flames when the last Murloc leader slashed a Murloc with a knife. A shot pierced through the snake leader's neck, and a large stream of blood sprayed his face. Not far away, the last second-level serpent priest made it to the end with a layer of magic shield, but as the Murlocs slammed into the shield, it was estimated that the second-level magic would not last long. About to be broken. The big picture is set. Lin Xiao finally breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 15 Shock. However, before he could take a breath, the last remaining snake priest suddenly gave up resistance, took out a bone dagger with gems like a snake tail from his waist and slammed it into his chest, and the bone dagger lit up immediately. A bloody golden light appeared, and at the same time, the two eye-like gems embedded in the dagger hilt lit up, and a suffocating breath appeared out of thin air. Hiss! The snake priest screamed up to the sky, his pupils became pitch black, and black chi-like snakes flew out of his pupils and quickly shot at all the dead snake corpses around, and when they flew back quickly, the black chi was wrapped around one by one. The serpent soul is re-entered into the serpent priest. As the souls of the snake people merged into the body, the aura of the snake priests expanded rapidly, and a coercion that only demigods had slowly emerged and grew rapidly. Fuck! The demigods are coming. Both are gods, of course Lin Xiao knows what this means. The demigod behind this snake man actually used this snake man priest as a medium to forcibly deliver a bit of divinity over to condense an incarnation. Obviously, this snake man demigod has taken a fancy to Lin Xiao, a newborn divine creature, and wants to use this method to kill him across borders. If it is an ordinary divine creature encountering this situation, there is a high probability that it will really kneel. Demigods are more than a little bit stronger than divine creatures. Even just an incarnation can easily crush almost all divine beings. It's a pity that Lin Xiao is in class now. He is a student, and there is a teacher watching over him during class, just to prevent this kind of accident. In such a situation, all he has to do is calm down, and then, "Teacher, save me!" Bold. There was a deafening roar from the sky, and a golden finger like a mountain fell from the sky and pressed on the snake priest who was condensing. Seemingly feeling this deadly threat, the black smoke soul that enveloped the snake priest shrank rapidly, forming a pitch-black eggshell-like shield. Then, the golden finger pressed down, the eggshell collapsed inch by inch, and the snake priest, who had changed drastically, also collapsed inch by inch, and finally turned into nothingness, leaving only a little golden light hanging in the void and constantly flickering, constantly emitting a message that made Lin Xiao unable to hold back the drooling divine power fluctuations. This is a bit of divinity. The snake demigod sent it across the border to prepare for the incarnation. Now that the incarnation and will has collapsed, only this bit of divinity is left. A golden light flew out of the golden fingers and entangled the golden light. Lin Xiao subconsciously stretched out his hand and said, "Hey," the golden fingers paused and continued to fly away. After a while, he heard the voice of the head teacher Wu Hai. Theoretically speaking, this bit of divinity was generated in this extra test and should be yours, but it is impossible to defeat a demigod incarnation with your strength. According to the rules, you failed this extra test, but the follow-up the incarnation of a demigod is an accident, beyond the scope of the additional test, so I took away the divinity. This additional test determines that you are successful, and the God Domain card belongs to you. Lin Xiao sighed heavily, which was what he expected. But after all, it was a bit of divinity, and it was painful for him to see it disappear. You must know that from a divine creature to a demigod, the most important thing is divinity, which is the essence of a divine creature. God needs to condense the priesthood, which requires enough divinity to carry the priesthood. The stronger the divinity, the more and stronger the priesthood can be. Lin Xiao only has a bit of divinity now, and Yuan Hong, the strongest in the class, only has 2 points of divinity, and to become a demigod, the minimum standard is 5 points of divinity. Normally, one needs to accumulate 100 million units of faith and a certain amount of divine power to try to gather a little divinity, but it may not be successful. A full 100 million. Lin Xiao felt that he was wrong. But there is no way, no matter from which aspect, this divinity does not belong to him. Fortunately, this extra test was considered a success, and the divine domain card was his, which was not bad. At this point, this thorough examination is over for him, and the next step is to clean up. The injured murlocs go back to the tribe first, and those who are not injured clean up the battlefield, move the dead murloc bodies, including weapons, to one side, and then move all the snake men corpses back and pile them together. More than 200 serpent people, more than 300 murlocs were killed in battle, and the corpses piled up into mountains. Now there are only more than 200 family members alive in God's domain, which is a lot less at once. Fortunately, the remaining murlocs are basically the kind with twice the reproduction and survival rate. There are still more than half a month before the final exam. More than 20 years is enough time to reproduce. Looking at these two piles of corpses, the weather by the sea is easy to rot, and Lin Xiao is ready to burn them. But when he was about to do it, he suddenly had a whim. Could he use his good fortune cube to do something? Still not reconciled to that bit of divinity, but there is no way to not belong to him in any way, which makes him very depressed, always feels that he has suffered a loss, and wants to earn something back. He was thinking, since the magic cube of good fortune has functions such as decomposition and extraction, it can decompose and extract the core inside the card, whether it can decompose these corpses, and what can be extracted. Anyway, these corpses need to be burned, so why not try your own idea if it works? It's okay if it doesn't work, if it works. As soon as he said it, he looked up at the sky. At this time, the head teacher and the tutor had left, and there was no one outside the realm of God. Flying over the pile of snake corpses, stretched out his right palm, and a circle of golden circles flew out and quickly expanded and fell, trapping the mountain of corpses made of snake corpses. When the golden aperture swallowed the corpse and closed it again, more than 200 snake man corpses had disappeared. Then he did the same, swallowing the murloc corpse on the other side. While doing this, he did not forget to let the murloc leader shout. The great Lord of the Grey Mist welcomes brave warriors to the kingdom of our Lord, and the evil invaders will plunge into the abyss. As an excellent student with a perfect score in the theory of gods, how to maximize belief is almost immersed in instinct, and nonsense will come. Amid the fanatical cheers of all the believers, Lin Xiao's real body rose to the sky and returned to the kingdom of God. His current divine kingdom has almost nothing. Compared with the mountains and waters in the divine realm, the divine kingdom has only chaos. As a new god of the main world, which is different from the traditional belief in gods, the core is the fusion of the kingdom of God and the material plane, a divine domain with two sides. However, for a newly developed god realm like Lin Xiao, the development of the material plane of God realm is not enough, and the accumulated faith points are not enough for personal use, so there is no room to decorate the God realm. Therefore, although his divine kingdom is as large as the divine realm, the real area is only the size of a football field, and there is only a simple palace. His residence and real body live in the core of the divine palace. A murloc petitioner guards the facade. Chapter 16 Choice. The real body returned to the kingdom of God, and suddenly a powerful force filled the whole body. This is the blessing of the entire divine realm. Just like the traditional gods in their own divine realm can obtain the blessing of the divine realm rules, and the new human gods of the main world can obtain the dual blessing of the divine realm and the divine realm, which is much stronger than the ancient gods in this regard. In this kingdom of gods, Lin Xiao is a true incarnation of a snake man and a demigod. But the problem is that the incarnation of the snake man and the demigod will not go to the kingdom of God foolishly. He only needs to slaughter all the species in the kingdom of God, and Lin Xiao's power will be weakened to the extreme, and the kingdom of God will collapse. Therefore, the realm of the gods is very important to the new gods, and it is related to life and death. Fortunately, the Human Federation's protection of the newborn divine beings is in place. In high school, they are generally not allowed to face two dangerous enemies, and there are always teachers watching to avoid accidents, just like this time. Of course, there are also loopholes in the protection in place. Just like this time, if there is no teacher to take care of it during the exam, if Lin Xiao usually gets a snake man card to summon monsters to train his family, if there is an accident, it will be over. Therefore, every year, many students drop out of school due to various accidents, or even fall. In the shrine, Lin Xiao sat on the only rather gorgeous shrine. In the entire shrine, only this shrine was relatively gorgeous, and the rest were very simple. Lin Xiao, who was accustomed to all this, didn't care about it at all. As soon as he sat down, he immediately focused on the creation of the Rubik's Cube. There were 2 corpse mountains floating in the Rubik's Cube that could not sense the edge. His thoughts fell on the Fish Man Corpse Mountain and the Snake Man Corpse Mountain, and he pondered for a while. Breakdown. Suddenly, a mysterious power surged in the Rubik's Cube, and the mountain of corpses began to disintegrate, and soon the layers melted. In the end, all the corpses turned into nothingness, leaving only 2 balls of blood. When consciousness fell on these 2 blood lights, a smile appeared on Lin Xiao's face. Sure enough, as he expected, the 2 groups of blood light were a special gray fog murloc bloodline with twice the reproduction speed and survival rate of normal murlocs, and the other was a normal murloc bloodline. Now, as long as he consumes a certain amount of faith, he can turn these 2 bloodlines into 2 rare bloodline cards. However, Lin Xiao did not do this, but thought for a while, and suddenly said, "Refining." The blood light exploded into 2 blood mists, and then the power of creating the Rubik's Cube surged, and the blood mist began to gradually fade. A total of 5 light spots of different colors were formed in the air above the original blood mist. These represent the pure bloodline origin, the Snake Man Life brand, the pure bloodline origin, the Murloc Life brand, and reproduction rules. That is to say, a Snake Man bloodline card is made of pure life source and the life of the Snake Man. Lin Xiao now uses the magic cube to extract them separately. Zhang Wuxing's reproduction card has been refined again. After doing this, he took out the 2-star cod fish card and directly decomposed it into pure creation energy for backup. For him, the 2-star card was just a waste of a chance to use it, and he didn't like it. Next, Lin Xiao fell into deep thought. Because next, he has 2 choices, whether to be the Fish Man or the Snake Man. Yes, by extracting the bloodlines of the 2, he can choose to fuse the bloodlines of these 2 creatures into 1 creature through the magic cube, which is called the power of good fortune. There is no problem with the technology, which is the main point. In terms of personal feelings, he tends to Murlocs. After all, he is his first family and has feelings. But the Murlocs are too limited, which is not good for future development. If it is a Snake Man, it is strong, but it also means that he has to start over. Moreover, the Snake Man is a terrestrial creature, and the living environment is not in the realm of the gods now. Even if he gets the realm of the gods card after the exam, fertile the earth is integrated into the realm of the gods, and this environment does not seem to be suitable for snake people. In addition, there is not enough food in the gods' domain. Well, that's not much of a problem. The point is that there is a second species in God's domain, which has to start all over again. It requires a series of cards to cultivate an environment suitable for snake people to survive, arm them, cultivate beliefs and population numbers, and so on. This all takes time, and now the final exam is less than a month away, and it has only been placed in God's domain for more than 20 years. The growth rate of snake people is not comparable to that of Murlocs, and they can't cultivate combat power at all in more than 20 years. It will greatly affect his real-time combat power and affect the performance of the final exam. Why bah, this is really a happy trouble. Lin Xiao touched his forehead and decided not to make a decision for now. After the exam is over, he will go home and ask his father. His father is a high-level demigod with rich experience in this area, and I believe there will be good suggestions. At the same time, by the way, I asked my father to order some good things. It is really a waste to have such a good father. Sometimes Lin Xiao wants to spit on one of his parents or family cattle in some novels. The protagonist just doesn't make use of family resources. If it is one thing to say that it cannot be used, it is a foolish operation to be able to use it or not. A god's realm that is not much different from Lin Xiao's god's realm. It is full of deserts, only in the middle of the desert there is an oasis that is half surrounded by mountains. At this time, a checkpoint at the only exit of the oasis had been breached, the wooden fence was torn down, and there were corpses everywhere. The densely packed goblins rushed towards the oasis in the valley with weapons such as wooden sticks and bone spurs. Dozens of wounded desert lizardmen fought and retreated. In the valley, Many young and old lizardmen stood in the middle of the oasis with their weapons. Behind the fence by the lake, he looked at the goblin rushing in horror. Above the divine realm, a golden figure invisible to ordinary people looked at the battlefield below with a bitter look, especially the tall goblins. He raised his head with a long sigh and said, "Teacher, I lost." The voice of the head teacher Wu-Hai sounded. "You sure? Well." In the next second, a dull drum sound suddenly came from the sky, and then all the goblins in the oasis stopped as if they had pressed the pause button, and then all the goblins became illusory, turning into clear rays of light rising into the sky, and the oasis returned to calm. Within God's domain, the head teacher Wu-Hai took back the card in his hand, shook his head and said, "It's a pity. He was ranked in the top 10 in the class 2 months ago, and his strength dropped drastically due to a private act, and now he can't even pass the regular test." Zheng Wenjuo also shook his head. Next month's final exam, he should have no chance. One step is poor, and it will be difficult to catch up in the future. At the same time, in another divine domain, hundreds of swamp lizardmen in the swamp were besieging a two-headed crocodile with a length of about 7 or 8 meters. Chapter 17. The bottom-up test is over. Please ask for a reward. Compared to the previous student, there were only a few dozen desert lizardmen left in the divine domain. This student's divine domain developed very well. Nearly 300 swamp lizardmen surrounded the two-headed swamp crocodile and kept throwing short spears. Dozens of swamp lizard shooters kept firing a wooden arrow. And there is a huge swamp floating island about 1 kilometer away from the battlefield, and there is a huge swamp lizardman tribe on the floating island. There are nearly 300 swamp lizardmen outside the tribe who are besieging the two-headed swamp crocodile, but there are several times more swamp lizardmen living in the tribe, and the fighting outside the tribe has not affected them. This is a large swamp lizardmen tribe with more than 1,000 members. They live in a huge swamp that is about twice the size of Linshao God's domain. At a level that ordinary people cannot see in the sky, a golden figure is overlooking the battlefield outside the tribe. This golden figure is slender and handsome, and a red prismatic crystal on his forehead is particularly conspicuous. On the battlefield, the swamp lizardmen surrounded the two-headed swamp crocodiles, and arrows fell from the sky. At this time, the thick crocodile skin on the two-headed swamp crocodile was full of arrows, and the blood was all over the ground, dyed red. A large swamp. When the damage reached a certain limit, this fierce beast, who didn't know how much blood had been shed, could no longer hold on, and fell heavily. When he heard the news of passing the test, Yuan Hong showed a confident smile on his face, but it soon became gloomy, and he disappeared with a cold snort. Different divine realms face different tests, but the difficulty is basically the same. The number of enemies is large, and the individual must be weak. If the number is small, the individual's strength must be strong. Only one large monster like the two-headed swamp crocodile is enough to pose a huge threat to the weak God's domain. Lin Shao stayed in God's domain for a while, and first spent 27,110 faith points to upgrade 271 Murloc relatives to first-level Murloc warriors. Another 22,000 faith points were spent to promote 44 Murloc warriors to level 2 Murloc warriors. Each promotion required 500 faith points. So far, the remaining 282 Murlocs in God's domain have all been promoted to level 1 or above Murloc warriors, and 44 of them have been promoted to level 2 Murloc warriors, reaching the upper limit of the Grey Mist Murloc race. Unless there are special circumstances, it is impossible to continue promotion. Although the total number is far less than the original, the overall strength is not much worse than before the war. Leaving God's domain, Lin Shao did not return to the main world, but went to the Divine Artifact Palace dedicated to the class, where there were already 6 figures. The golden light he transformed into appeared from the sky, and the 6 eyes looked at him at the same time. When they saw him, they all showed surprised expressions. It is true that in the past, no matter whether he was a major class or a thorough test, his grades had been hovering around the 25th place. This time, he suddenly passed the test so early, and anyone would be surprised. However, he was surprised and looked away. He was sitting in the corner of the hall holding a magnifying glass-like prop to look at a metal ball in his hand that seemed to be made of secret parts. Classmate Zhao or Zhu smiled at him, then lowered his head and continued to study the problem. What do you know? Lin Xiao smiled back, and also found a corner in the hall, snapped his fingers, and sat down on a chair that appeared out of thin air. Although this palace is an artifact, it is not an artifact with super powerful power as imagined by ordinary people, but a general-purpose multifunctional auxiliary artifact. After waiting in the hall for a while, some students came back after passing the exam, and whispers began to sound in the hall, and the familiar gathered together to discuss the test just now in a low voice. After waiting for about 2 hours, Lin Xiao heard a crisp bell ringing, indicating that the time limit for the thorough examination had come. More than a dozen golden lights were projected from the outside, and all the remaining students appeared, along with the head teacher, Wu Hai, and his tutor Zheng Wenjuo. The pressure that the teacher was familiar with appeared in the hall, the whispers in the hall disappeared immediately, and Lin Xiao quickly stood up. Wu Hai's eyes swept across the hall, and when he landed on Lin Xiao, he quickly passed by and said in a deep voice, "First of all, let me tell you the bad news, Yan Huan has dropped out of school." What? Everyone was stunned, but immediately showed a clear color. Unexpected and reasonable, Lin Xiao knew that this was sooner or later. After all, he was the top 5 elite in the class 2 months ago, and suddenly he was weak to the bottom of the class. In addition, next month was the final exam, and the time was too tight to develop again in the future. Must be eliminated. Instead, it is better to drop out of school early and fight in other ways. For example, as Lin Xiao's mother said, if you fail to study, go home and accept the help of your parents to grow rapidly. There are no school regulations, you can use all kinds of cards to help you grow without restrictions. Or join some private companies or teams. With his past achievements, it is not that no company is willing to take risks and invest. But no matter which one, his future is destined to be limited, and being able to become a demigod is already the limit, and it is unlikely that he will become a true god without special circumstances. After announcing this disappearance, the head teacher returned to the topic and said, "This time the fundamental test has ended. There are 49 students in the class. 42 passed the test. 7 students did not complete the test and were judged to be unqualified. These 7 classmates are similar to Yan Huan. Although they are not as miserable as Yan Huan, their grades have always been so poor, and they are also of the kind with no future. The path of the gods is very cruel, like the whole class is running. Once you fall behind, it is basically difficult to keep up. Generally, there are less than 20 students ranked below the middle of the class. According to the practice of previous years, 99% of the students will not be able to be admitted to the university. Between 11th and 20th, they belong to the group who have the opportunity to be admitted to ordinary universities. Note that there is a chance, not a certainty. If you are unlucky and perform poorly, it is normal to fail the test. Only 10 or more people have a high probability of being admitted to the university. But it is very difficult for ordinary universities, key universities, or famous universities. It is quite difficult. It can be said that there are only 2 or 3 possible for the whole class. At this time, the head teacher Wu Hai continued, "Let's talk about a happy event first. Our class found a dark horse in the final test this time. Lin Xiao was the first to pass the test, beyond the teacher's expectation, and became the first place in the final test. It's very good." In an instant, he felt 50 gazes falling on him at the same time, and a few of them contained particularly powerful spiritual power. He looked over with a smile and cupped his hands. Looking at the top students in the class one by one, there is surprise, disdain, and slight hostility. Chapter 18 Rewards and Transactions. Student Lin Xiao not only won the first place in this fundamental test, but also passed additional tests and won an additional prize. The head teacher stretched out his finger, and a card with a touch of divine power appeared at the end of his finger. He smiled and said to Lin Xiao, "Lin Xiao, please come up to collect the prize." He was speechless, doing it like an award, it was too high profile. However, the teacher has always done this. Every time the test is conducted, he will praise the students with good grades to stimulate the students' enterprising spirit. For God's domain card Sake. All right. He stepped forward under the envy and jealous eyes of many classmates, and reached out to take this divine domain card from the head teacher. Yuan Hong kept his eyes on him until he reached out and took the card. The red prismatic crystal on his forehead lit up, and a voice appeared in Lin Xiao's ears out of thin air. Student Lin Xiao, is this a 5-star God's domain card of yours? He turned around in surprise. The expressions of the other students were not abnormal. It seemed that only he could hear it. He nodded. That's right, I will exchange 2 5-star cards with you. Lin Xiao frowned. This proposal is nothing, but this tone of voice is to give you face. He was very upset and simply refused. No change. 3. I use it myself. After taking the card from the teacher, he directly received it into God's domain. After continuous rejection, Yuan Hong's expression did not change, but his voice was much lower. This God's domain card is very important to me. The 3 5-star cards remain unchanged, and you can still gain my friendship. Lin Xiao raised his head in surprise and looked over with an extremely strange expression. Why bah? This line is so familiar. He remembers one of the classic lines of the feel-good villains in the online novel that he liked to read in his last life. There is this line, I'm looking for you to change it to give you face. Is it possible that I will be the protagonist in this life? Familiar supporting roles, classic golden fingers, and the rise of the critical day, isn't this the standard for the protagonist of the novel? But there are also unreasonable things, that is, it is not a waste material to start, the parents are not dead, there is no sister of the beautiful girl, and there is no annoying relative. The most important thing is that the class teacher is not a beauty, and there is no class flower in the class school flower etc. Well, definitely not. He rubbed his teeth, looked up with a bright smile, and shook his head. He is not false. Although he is the son of the true God, he is not bad. There is a true God in the Lin family, and whoever is afraid of that. Besides, this time it was him who took the lead, so why should he give up the reward he got based on his ability? Well, it's not about changing, but the meaning is the same, so what if I don't change? Yuan Hong really can't do it. If he is an ordinary student, he might be able to threaten the other party, but this Lin Xiao, although his grades were not very good before, but his background is not bad, he is not as good as himself, nor can he casually threaten. Yes, he just doesn't want to change, and he can't help it. Taking a deep look at Lin Xiao, Yuan Hong looked away expressionlessly. The other students did not notice the secret confrontation between the two. The class teacher Wu Hai seemed to have noticed something, but he just glanced at the two and retracted his gaze, and said in a deep voice. This time, Yuan Hong is the second and Wan Chuan is the third. Please come to collect the rewards. Compared with the first place, the second place and the third place will not receive the award alone. After handing the 2 cards to the two, Wu Hai said. This time the fundamental test has ended, but a more severe test will come next month. You don't need me to say that you also know what the final exam means. Yes, it is class placement, which is directly related to your future achievements and is very critical. Quote, I won't say anything extra. I believe you know better than me. I don't have any additional requirements. I don't ask you to get any rankings, and I don't ask you to be admitted to the elite class. I only say one thing. Having said that, he stretched out his right hand, and a card with a dazzling golden light appeared, and an urge to grab it spontaneously emerged from everyone's heart. Deities, whether they are divine creatures or demigods, or even true gods, have a natural desire for divinity. No need to ask, no need to look, all the students know what this is. Yuan Hong and Wan Chuan, 2 of the top students in the class, couldn't help but stepped forward and asked at the same time. Teacher, is this? Yes, that's a bit of divinity. The head teacher Wu Hai was very satisfied with the reactions of the students and said with a smile. This final exam, the best reward for this class is this bit of divinity. In this final exam, no matter who it is, as long as he achieves the first place in the class and the top 5 in the whole school, he can get this bit of divinity. Sex. After a pause, the head teacher added, Student Lin Xiao can only use the top 10 in the school. Everyone looked at Lin Xiao, and Yuan Hong immediately asked, Teacher, why is this? All the students in the class were equally puzzled, obviously wanting to know why. Wu Hai said, This bit of divinity comes from the divine realm of classmate Lin Xiao this time. To obtain this divinity, Classmate Lin Xiao has made a certain contribution, and the teacher has not compensated, so he has preferential treatment in this final exam, and if someone is the same as him. If the requirements are fulfilled, under the same circumstances, divinity will also be given priority to reward him. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuan Hong and several other top students said at the same time. No, the head teacher's stressful gaze swept over, several top students swayed slightly. Yuan Hong gritted his teeth and said, I think this is unfair to us. We are willing to compensate Lin Xiao now, but we must be fair in this divine competition. Wu Hai pondered for a while, and said to Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao, what is your opinion? Lin Xiao clasped his hands together, his mind was rapidly turning to think about their proposal. In principle, he didn't want to refuse. After all, for him, the top 10 and top 5 in the whole grade were not much different, and they were equally difficult to enter. Although you can ask your parents to order good things during this period, the good things you can get are limited. It's not that the parents don't give them or they don't, but it is related to the rule that all students can only use 1 card per month. Although Lin Xiao has only used 3 cards now, there are still 6 quotas, but this is not the case. 3 cards is a combination of 6 cards that are decomposed into 3 new cards by golden fingers. He only used 3 cards, but in the eyes of outsiders, he used at least 5 or 6 cards, and the rest can only be used at most 3 or 4 cards, deducting a quota for backup, lest he suddenly get a good card and can't use it, then he will get the most from his parents. Get 3 or 4 cards. Now that he has the magic cube, he will definitely decompose and fuse these cards into new powerful cards. Naturally, the more basic card pools, the better. Chapter 19 Preparation 1. When the card pool in hand increases, there will be more options for decomposition and fusion, and it may also be merged into a very powerful card to increase the strength. Wasn't the divinity still his own at that time? Take other people's things to strengthen yourself, this operation can be done. Thinking of this, he raised his head and smiled. This bit of divinity came out because of my reasons. It's natural for me to get priority. You guys have always been the top 5 in the class, and you have a good chance of getting it. Although I won the first place in the bottom-up test this time, I lost a lot of money. It's very big, it's hard to say whether I can continue to perform well in the final exam, let alone the first in the class and the top 10 in the grade, so in principle, I'm willing to sell this priority for a good price. Lin Xiao spoke very straightly, and took this as a deal without beating around the bush. He stretched out his index finger and said, Student Yuanong, you are the strongest and have the best chance, so I want you a 5-star card, do you have any opinion? Yuan Hong's face suddenly fell, and his mouth moved without making a sound. Lin Xiao ignored his ugly expression. Who told you to threaten me just now? He looked at Wan Chuan, another top student in the class, and continued. Student Wan Chuan, your grades are on a par with classmate Yuan Hong, and the ranking is slightly lower than that of Yuan Hong, so you have a great chance, so I want you a 4-star card, no problem. The tall Wan Chuan glanced at Yuan Hong, who had an ugly face, and said with a smile. No problem. Lin Xiao nodded, looked at the other 3 students who were always in the top 5 in the class, and said. You each have a 2-star card, no problem, right? Compared with Yuanong Wanchuan, these 3 competitions are much smaller. If they are more, they will definitely not come. The 2-star card is just right. As long as they have the idea of taking a shot in this final exam, they will definitely agree. However, to his surprise, the 3 of them looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. Forget it, we're not interested in this. I wipe. Miscalculation. I don't know if they are not confident or they are not fooled. Anyway, if they don't agree, there is nothing he can do. Fortunately, it doesn't matter if the 3 of them disagree, it's enough to agree. Yuan Hong and Wan Chuan's strengths are not much different. Usually, the first place in the bottom-up test is usually between the 2 of them. Just a few times. The strong strength gives him confidence, and Wan Chuan has the confidence to compete with Yuan Hong for the first place again. Next, witnessed by the teacher and other students, Yuan Hong and Wan Chuan each took out a 5-star card and a 4-star card to Lin Xiao, in exchange for a chance to compete fairly. As for the cards, it's random, even if their net worth is impossible to have a few 5-star cards on them. But the cards that can be put on them will not be too bad, and there will be no waste cards. So the transaction was completed, and Lin Xiao had a resource card and a species card in his hand. 4-star resource card. Bison herd, rare, summons 100 bison at one time. Note: male and female are random. 5-star species card. Goblin tribe, normal, obtain 500 ordinary goblins at one time. Note: have 10 goblin bears, half male and half male. The goblin card is a bit useless, but this herd of bison is quite good. The male and female are randomly marked on the back, which means that if there is a certain number of cows in it, it can multiply based on this. The most important thing is that the wild cattle can be domesticated, that is, they can be used for plowing the fields, they can also be used to pull goods, they can be slaughtered and eaten when there is a shortage of food, or they can be used for battle, etc., with many functions. Coming out of the Divine Realm login cabin, Lin Xiao washed his face and went back to the login cabin, and took out a total of 3 cards from it: the Divine Realm card, the resource card Bison Herd, and the species card Goblin Tribe. After thinking about it, he hid the cards he got from Wan Chuan and Yuan Hong, then took out the wrist wheel and sent a message to Mom and Dad. There was a response in less than a minute. The light blue starlight shone down, and the beautiful and lovely mother, like a girl, projected in front of him, and asked softly, "Shower, what's the matter with you? I remember that today is your last quiz this semester. How are your grades?" Lin Xiao couldn't help showing a heartfelt smile on his face, and tilted his head with his hands behind his back and said, "You guess." Jin Yunju glanced at her son's face and said with a smile, "Looking at your appearance, you should have good grades. What are you holding behind your back?" "Hey, that's right, clang clang clang." He stretched out his hands behind his back and showed the Divine Domain card in front of his mother. "Look, this time, your son took the first place in the thorough test and passed the teacher's additional test. The teacher rewarded me with a Divine Domain card." Jin Yunju looked at this cherished 5-star God's Domain card with surprise and joy, and said with a look of surprise and joy, "It's true, son, you actually won the first place this time. It's amazing, Mom is so happy." She didn't ask him how to get the first place at all, she just looked at him with a look of joy, and muttered again, "This is a good thing. I'll tell your dad to go and let your dad reward you later." Seeing this, Lin Xiao smiled and rubbed his hands together and said, "Mom, you know, the final exam is next month, and the grades at that time will be related to the next semester's class placement. Although your son's grades have caught up, he wasted a lot of time before, and there are still several loading places left. Discuss with your father whether you can support a few better cards. When I get good grades, I will be assigned to an elite class or a key class next semester, and I will give you a good face, right?" Knowing his son Mo Ruimu, Jin Yunju knew his son's expression when he saw whether he wanted to poop or pee, covered his mouth and said with a smile, "You should have figured it out earlier. Your father has prepared a set of 5-star cards for you. You said that you need to rely on your own skills, and it turned out." Lin Xiao touched his head embarrassedly and said, "Isn't that ignorant before, but now I've figured it out. I don't want to work hard anymore, I want to hug my parents' thighs. If I knew this earlier, why should it be in the first place?" Jin Yunju stretched out a slender finger and nodded at his head, and spat softly. Lin Xiao nodded and bowed while holding his fists. "Well, baby now knows it's wrong. Then wait, I'll talk to your dad." "Okay, congratulations to send off the Queen Mother." Loquacious. After sending his mother away, Lin Xiao hummed a song and lay down on the bed. He was not worried about this. His parents had long planned for his life. Even if he really had no talent, he could become a demigod with their help. Even if it is just an ordinary demigod, he will have a lifespan of tens of thousands of years, which is enough for him to live happily. I have to say that it is cool to be born well, to have such a father who seems to be strict and actually caring for him, and a loving mother who can be said to be quite doting. Compared with the treatment of other transmigrators, this is a proper winner in life. Lin Xiao is 10,000 satisfied with his family in this life. Chapter 20 Preparation 2. Lying on the bed for a while, Lin Xiao put on his clothes and went out. He was going to go out to eat something delicious. It was to celebrate his first place in the month-end test. He called a taxi through a taxi app, and when he opened the door, a silver-white aircraft parked at the door of his building on the 123rd floor. The house he lives in is not where his family lives, but an apartment bought by his parents in Dongning City. There are more than 500 floors. He lives on the 123rd floor, and the aircraft parks directly on the 123rd floor door. It is no surprise that such tall buildings are everywhere in the ultra-fantasy and ultra-sci-fi era that is hundreds of thousands of years away from his last life. The planet Lin Xiao is currently on is still the Earth, but he doesn't know if it is the Earth in the parallel space hundreds of thousands of years later. One day about 200,000 years ago, the game of God's domain appeared out of thin air. At that time, everyone thought it was just an ordinary game. This is not an ordinary game, but a real conferred God game. Players log into the game, open up a God's domain in the warp, develop the God's domain, invade the crystal wall system in the chaotic sea on the other side of the warp, plunder resources, compete for belief, and seize the divine status. God. In this era, God's domain has affected all aspects of the entire civilization. After graduating from primary school in 12 years, all citizens will participate in a comprehensive assessment, including theoretical knowledge, psychological tests, and so on. Qualified people will get an opportunity to open up the realm of the gods. If they successfully open up, they will become an official conferred God game player and enter the middle school specialized in cultivating gods. Losers have no second chance. They can only go to ordinary high schools, learn various professional knowledge, and can only become an ordinary person after graduation. So now this super fantasy civilization is not all gods, and more than 90% are ordinary people, living together with the gods players. Gods and mortals are naturally divided into classes, which is inevitable. The ruling class of the Federation is all gods, and mortals have almost no chance to enter the ruling class. However, this is an ultra-modern civilization after all, and the slogan of the Human Federation is equality of all beings. It is inevitable that the gods have privileges, but ordinary people are not without the opportunity to turn over. The federal constitution stipulates that any descendant of ordinary people is eligible to participate in the annual comprehensive examination. As long as they pass, they have the opportunity to open up the realm of the gods. Whether or not it can be successful is one thing, but there are opportunities. Many gods today were not ordinary people from hundreds of thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years ago. Whether or not they can become a member of the privileged class depends on your own ability and luck. Because of the ascending ladder guaranteed by the Constitution, even if the class privileges of the gods are obvious, the structure of civilization is as stable as Mount Tai. Lin Xiao is very lucky in this life. He is directly a privileged class, the most intuitive expression. The tuition fee is completely free, and there will be a large amount of living allowance every month. Even the car is only half price, not to mention other priorities. For example, mating priority, chasing Miss Sister with ordinary people, and being the first to succeed plus 99%. The aircraft passed through the high-rise buildings between the bustling cities and came to a 1,000-story skyscraper. There was a super large light screen on the central wall of the huge skyscraper, and there was a goddess poster with impeccable facial features. This beauty, Lin Xiao, is very familiar. Her name is Leng Qingshan. She is one of the top 10 singers of the Human Federation, the goddess. Like the top 10 singers of the Federation, all of them have clerical positions in terms of musical talents, and the lowest is true gods. Beauty alone without talent is not enough in today's era. The aircraft entered the building, which covers an area of 1 million square meters, and stopped at a berth similar to a high-speed rail station through a long passage. After paying the money, he snapped his fingers with a smack. A flying board hung on the edge of the platform in the slots on the wall and flew over and floated under his feet. When he stood up, the flying board automatically floated forward and flew forward. Flying out of the platform, you will see a super bustling commercial street. At a glance, it is full of people's heads and colorful neon lights. Lin Xiao, who was familiar with his knowledge, got into an alley next to a certain street. Inside was a snack street. He found a shop with the sign of Second Brother Beef Noodles and sat down. The master who was making noodles saw him smiling and reaching out. A finger said, "Still the same." Same as usual. Looking back and looking around, business is very good. It didn't take long for a big sea bowl to be placed in front of him, and he picked up his chopsticks and picked up a large piece of hot vermicelli and stuffed it into his mouth. Good to eat. A piece of beef is half a palm long and delicious. Since discovering this one, Lin Xiao has come to eat it almost every week. After taking a big mouthful of this big bowl of vermicelli, which is comparable to a small wash basin, I wiped my mouth, paid the money, said hello, and left. After strolling around the street for a while, and strolling around, most of the bustling streets are ordinary people, and there are very few divine beings or even demigods like him, and occasionally they bring their family to play. These are all people who have graduated and entered the society, and cannot become a demigod who resides in the alien crystal wall. They can only find a job in reality and pin their hopes on the next generation. Those who really have the potential to become demigods, or are already demigods themselves, basically seldom stay in reality, and mostly stay in the planes in some crystal wall systems in the chaotic sea, which is called Outland in modern parlance. Just like Lin Xiao's parents, they are now in a plane group of the Ax-14 crystal wall system where the family is located. That is the plane where the family made a fortune, and it is also the basic plate of the family in the chaotic sea. The two true god elders of the family are in charge all the year round. There, most of the other tribes were in the plane group. When Lin Xiao was a child, he heard from elders chatting by chance that the family was attacking a large plane with several indigenous gods, and he didn't know if he had captured it now. These are still a bit far away from him. At this stage, his main task is to study hard. Only when he is unable to enter the university will he return to the family plane, and he will become a demigod with the help of family resources, and then he will serve the family. Lin Xiao is only in the first year of high school. After he is placed in the second year of high school, if he performs as well as before, and shows the potential to impact the true God, he will be able to obtain financial support from the family, and he will be able to obtain a large number of extremely rare cards to increase his strength. This is the advantage of having a backer behind it. As long as you show your potential, you will have resources tilted. This is very important to Lin Xiao. After all, even if he has a golden finger, if he doesn't have a card in his hand, it is a clever woman who has no way to cook.